has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Friendly competition inside the Civic Media network of our hosts. As we know, I'm a very competitive person. You know how competitive I am? Prick me to start giving blood. They tell me that there's been a contest to see who can fill up their bag the fastest. 5 minutes, 4 seconds. I got done and I said, did I win? And they said, you were the fastest all day.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time, this is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin. Hello, Wausau, Wisconsin Rapids, Green Bay, Amory, Richland Center, our home base of Waukesha, Madison tonight.
Fox Valley.
Fox Valley.
Yeah.
Hello to the entire state. Maybe I'll just start saying,
Hello, Wisconsin.
hello, Wisconsin. How are you doing, Jane McNair?
I am really good.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm actually very happy with the amount of snow we have right now. It looks very beautiful.
Does
It's not too cold. It looks a
atmosphere.
little bit more like winter than it has been.
Yeah.
So we're happy about that. And we're happy that the $1 million ad giveaway is here.
underway.
It started 2 hours ago, and I think it's going well from what I can hear from the home base in Madison of
Right.
the people who are tracking this. But in case you somehow have missed what this is and what we're doing, if you are a business owner or you know someone who is a business owner who could benefit from advertising to people in Wisconsin, this is for them or for you. We are giving away today and today only $1 million worth of advertising on our airwaves. And so it started at 9 and it's open until we sell out, but it's gone after today. And so all you have to do is go to civicmedia.us/million right now. And the button is live to apply. And it's pretty basic questions as far as what is your company? Where are you based? What are your advertising goals? And most importantly, who sent you? How did you find out about this? And that is the part where you're going to go, obviously, As Goes Wisconsin sent me. But we are very excited to see how this turns out.
We definitely are. I do want to say that our good friend and colleague who we love and adore, Brian Kelly, yesterday said that if you didn't say that you heard it from Dueling Tangents, that Brian's life would be in danger.
I heard that too. I was driving home and I heard them talking. He goes, I have to go pick up my daughter right now because I'm endangering her life.
I'm being watched.
I'm being watched
Yeah.
if we do not win this. And so they're taking a very different approach of guilting you into putting Dueling Tangents. But we took the approach of just reminding you that we would really appreciate it.
Yes, we would. And also, we don't want anything to happen to Cliff the dog.
No, that is true. That is very true. Cliff, he might fight back. He's pretty
tough.
vicious.
He's little, but he's scrappy.
He is scrappy. Oh, all right. Well, we will give periodic reminders of that today as the show goes on. But happy Thursday, January 26th. I screwed up my dates this week.
You missed something.
I missed something fun, but that is okay. Maybe a reminder that I am doing too much, which is fine. The weekend's almost here.
It is.
But I saw this morning and I figured it. I don't know if it has any information that we're going to find surprising, but I figured it was worth talking about. Granted that we started the week talking about the mass shooting that happened in Monterey Park. And then on Tuesday, again, a shooting that happened in Half Moon Bay. And a new study has come out from the Secret Service's National Threat Assessment Center. And if it feels like a lot of the mass attacks that happen in the United States have very similar details, it's because many of them do, which is exactly what this study says. So they examined 173 public attacks occurring since 2016 to 2020. And they found patterns that repeated from what we saw in Uvalde and the shootings from this week. And the commonalities, who's doing them? Almost all of the attackers acted alone, and almost all of the attackers were men. And of the 173, the age ranged from 14 to 87, but the average age ended up being around 34. What did they use in their attack? 73% of the attacks involved firearms, and most of those were fatal. The remaining attacks that didn't involve firearms were mostly non-fatal. So poking a hole in the argument as far as, well, you can still attack someone with a knife.
Which does happen.
But as far as how many people, how quickly you can hurt with a knife, and how devastating the injury ends up being compared to a grapefruit-sized hole in your body from an AR-15, it's a little different. And this is the part where I think, as there is multiple cases right now going to trial as far as men killing their wives
And families.
This is an important part. So when they get to the common thread between why, nearly all attackers experienced a significant stressor, such as a loved one dying in the 5 years prior to the attack, and 77% of them experienced a stressor within the last year. And so half of the incidents were motivated by perceived wrongs. So they felt like they were wronged.
They were justified in doing this.
In either the workplace or the home. And so I think as the details came out from the Half Moon Bay shooting this week, it was a workplace. It's being considered workplace violence. And I don't know if it was ever confirmed. Did you hear anything more about the Monterey Park?
I haven't.
Yeah.
As far as this being potentially domestic violence related, did they say anything in this report about that commonality?
So what it does say is that most attackers had very similar red flags as far as things that probably should have escalated.
Or at least given people a heads up.
Yeah. So half of the attackers had a history of perpetuating misogyny or domestic violence, and that those behaviors deserve increased attention from law enforcement when they happen. Also, violent online posting and chatting can also be a signal of that the individual might have committed an attack. So, for example, the shooter in Uvalde threatened women online and shared graphic, misogynistic content. I feel like sometimes we just want to get the heavy stuff out of the way,
Right?
Because what is it, the no sour haha fun hour that we're the time of the third hour, that's when we're finally having fun. But sometimes the heavy stuff we just gotta start with,
And it needs to be talked about.
And that's why when I read it this morning, it was timely that this study came out in this week. But so nearly 2/3 of attackers said or did things so objectively concerning, the report said that they should have been met with an immediate response.
Wow.
And so many of these were reported to law enforcement, employers, and others prior to the attack, but no one acted on them. So the big takeaway from the report is that recognizing shared patterns among past attacks early could help future tragedies, thus red flag laws. But according to this, it's already 39. We're up to 39 incidents.
39 mass shootings.
This is 39 incidents of mass violence. So maybe some that didn't involve a gun, but and
On the 26th of January.
The 26th of January.
We need some really hard discussions, people. We need some really hard discussions about why a segment of the population feels it is within their right to take the lives of women and children in their lives.
Or anyone.
Yes. But
Especially
especially
if that's the common thread
Yes.
as far as, and this ties into so many things as far as this narrative around, oh, men aren't men anymore. On the other side of this coin, when there's actual social science and data that points to broken men are hurting people and killing people, and how much of that is tied to their misogynistic ideals and their entitlement to what is theirs and how they should be and deserve to be treated
Yes.
by the world, by women. And on the flip side, you have, I don't know how many, but certainly a loud portion of a certain sect of thinking that is like, well, men are just so soft now. We don't want these beta men. We want these alpha men. And they're so, these betas, bah. And it's like, I will take a beta. I will take a beta if it means I don't get murdered.
Well, there was a lawmaker who is no longer in office because he screwed up his first term, who was telling women to raise their sons to be monsters. Raise your sons to be monsters. That was Madison Cawthorn who said that.
He said that?
Yes.
I mean, I guess it doesn't surprise me.
Yes. Raise your sons to be monsters because that's what we need in this world. I think we're there. I think we have monsters. I think we've raised a whole bunch of them already.
And this ties into what we're going to talk about in the next segment, because I feel like we didn't do it enough justice yesterday in talking about Governor Evers declaring this 2023 being the year of mental health in Wisconsin. Because I think I kind of just threw out there the new report or the new study that I had seen from WPR saying the dramatic increase of suicide attempts and suicidal thoughts amongst children in Wisconsin. But we're also, I had to go back and look this up and we'll talk about it more. But I mean, Wisconsin's above the national average for suicide.
We are.
Mm-hmm. And so I think he is right. He being Governor Evers is right in we gotta deal with this. And because it's not only people hurting themselves, it's people hurting other people. And go ahead.
You can't, after every mass shooting, you can't say this is about mental health and then not fund services to provide mental health.
Exactly. No, we just got to put more locks on schools.
And armor teachers.
And armor teachers. Yes, exactly. All right. Well, it'll get more fun from here. I promise. That we started low so that we can end high. When we come back, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about mental health. Amazon has a new prescription service that is interesting, and a different kind of prescription is going to have a federal lawsuit that means something that's not legal in Wisconsin may end up being legal depending on how it goes. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I was just curious as to why you called it the Paul Revere Show.
The Paul Revere Show is named this way because the poem that we all know, the famous Ride, the poem was written to rally the troops to fight slavery and fight for democracy. And so I named the show the Paul Revere Show because I thought it was the time to get on the air and talk about democracy.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. always on the Civic Media app.
We have to really understand how critically important a time this is. Time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Because my voice has always been and will continue to be for people who don't have a voice.
Tune in to the Earl Ingram Show every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Only on WAUK 540 AM, 101.1 FM, The Shaw.
Women get a lot of advice about self-care these days, but one of the most important self-care steps we can take is making sure we're financially secure later in life. For small steps you can take to save for retirement, visit WeSaySaveIt.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Chance for scattered snow showers this afternoon, otherwise overcast skies. Highs level off around 31. Northwesterly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. lows around 15. Tonight, partly cloudy. Snow showers likely at times. Tomorrow, high temperatures reach up to 33. Cloudy skies expected. 2 to 4 inches of snow today through Saturday night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for News Talk Radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. As always, you can join the conversation at 844-967-2789. And previously, we were talking about a new report that came out that I think instinctively a lot of us knew, as far as just trying to string together the details that always end up coming out with mass shootings, as far as it being almost always a man, almost always acting alone, it usually being tied to some traumatic event that happened recently for them, and the ties to misogyny and
domestic violence, and the red flags that people see and sometimes do actually report, and then nothing happens. And it also just comes back to getting people help and getting people mental health help. And, fingers crossed that this priority that Governor Tony Evers announced on Tuesday during his State of the State is that that is something that we as a state can start to work on. And so if you missed it, we kind of touched on it yesterday when Greg was here, but we didn't gloss over it, but it was just, we were trying to hit all the different highlights of what was in the speech. And we didn't focus on this as much, but Governor Evers announced on Tuesday during the State of the State address that he's seeking hundreds of millions of dollars for mental health services for Wisconsinites, and particularly children who have spent, the last 3 years navigating COVID and school. Being at home.
It's already hard enough to be a kid. We've talked a lot about social media stuff. But yeah, and then having this year be the year of mental health. And so some of the measures he would seek to include in the budget is increasing spending on classrooms and programs specifically meant to address mental health, and also proposing $500 million more for overall mental health and behavioral services, which is part of the big problem right now, because I referenced this for a second yesterday, but the where is it? The UW Health this week, January 19th, so this was last week, the Children's ER continues to see startling number of suicide-related visits. And so UW Health's pediatric emergency department saw more than 40 patients per month who required psychiatric care.
40 a month.
40 a month. That's almost 3 times the number seen a decade earlier. And when you go on to read this article, this is in WPR from last week, just titled "Children's ER Continues to See Startling Number of Suicide-Related Visits." And one of the things they list is that this is the common theme, right? There's not enough people.
Right.
There's not enough specialists, specifically specialists who focus on children's psychiatric care. And they also said that this is tied up in the increase of respiratory, that I guess you wouldn't think about it, but the need for respiratory illnesses like RSV, because pediatric ERs across the country are full because of both depression, anxiety, and suicide issues, but also physical illnesses.
Right.
And the part of the problem is because it is a skilled profession, it's not like they can just flip a switch. It
takes years.
It takes recruitment. It takes people training. It takes people going into this. And so, but that's not even, he did say partially the focus on children, but we kind of touched, I think, on this when we had Dan Buttry from the War Memorial on. And, I think it's also another thing that we understand with veterans and how often, unfortunately, like their rates of suicide is higher. The rates of depression and PTSD is higher than the general population. But this was last September when DHS announced that they were going to use federal funding to focus on suicide prevention among the state's two most vulnerable populations, rural men, 25 to 64.
We've talked to Pam Yankee about that from the Midwest Farm Report.
And then girls 10 to 19.
Girls
10 to 19. So those two groups have the highest suicide rates. But in Wisconsin, we surpassed what the national rate is by, I think, like 10%. And
that just shocks me.
Oh, those two target population outrate are higher than the national rates. Those groups, both those groups are 10% higher in Wisconsin. And so, like, this is a huge problem. And I applaud Governor Evers for talking about it and making it such a big part of his speech on Tuesday. And which clip do we have if we want to replay that?
We're going to have to do it on the other side of the break.
We'll do it on the other side of the break. But just because, and I don't, Greg, I feel like when Greg's here on Wednesdays, he has harsher words for Republicans than.
He's very blunt.
And he said, they just don't care. And I feel like this is an opportunity for them to show that they care. Because I think if you ask them individually, they do care. I don't want to believe that they're the people who are elected. Like, I think a lot of people, Republicans in the state legislature, are good people. And if you ask them point blank, they do care about this stuff. And they probably, most likely, have been affected, or they know someone who's been affected by suicide. And this is their opportunity to show that they care. And hopefully the groupthink doesn't talk them out of it, because it is something that we need to address.
I thought I saw Robin Voss retweet someone talking about the funding for mental health in Wisconsin that was in the governor's speech. And he basically said, not going to happen.
Well, maybe Robin Voss doesn't care, but I'm talking about some of the other guys. All right. On the other side of this, Amazon prescription maybe will be a little bit more affordable for you. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I think that you're going to be fine. We'll have to wait and see. I'll call you back later.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
CBS News Brief. The government says the economy grew at an annual rate of 2.9% during the final 3 months of 2022. Mark Hamrick, Bankrate.com.
Well, this is clearly a positive reading of growth in the final quarter of last year. We know that a number of measures were quite weak in December as the quarter wound to a close, including 2 straight monthly declines in retail sales and a drop in industrial production.
The police officer who found the bodies of attorney Alex Murdaugh's wife and adult son is on the stand today in Murdaugh's South Carolina murder trial.
Large pool of blood around him, as well as a great deal of water that was immediately around his body.
A Senate committee holding a hearing on Russia's war in Ukraine. New Jersey Democrat Bob Menendez.
How many civilians will die from Russian missile attacks in Ukraine because Putin can't achieve his battlefield goals? What will Putin do as he gets more desperate?
New missile and drone attacks today in Ukraine are blamed for 11 deaths. CBS News Brief. I'm Steve Kathan.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Milwaukee, always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. Wisconsin's record budget surplus keeps growing. The Legislative Fiscal Bureau now says state government could be $7.1 billion in the black in July. That's $500 million more than expected. Almost 90% of that increase comes from money that was set aside during the past 2 years but not spent. Lawmakers and the governor are talking about what to do with the money. If you don't have high-speed internet where you live, now is the time to fix that. Anyone can challenge the Federal Communications Commission's draft of the National Broadband Map. You can check your address to see if you should be getting it. Washington is trying to get high-speed internet access to as many people as possible. In sports, the Bucks beat Denver last night 107-99. Maryland shelled the Badgers 73-55. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor. Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Ty Christian from Lords of the Trident. Can you say Max Inc. Radio rocks, Jimmy K is awesome in Japanese?
Sure. Let's see. How do I say rocks? Let me see. Sugoi! Max Inc. Radio wa sugoi datta omoimasu. I just said you're great, you know.
Thank you. You're great too. Original local music from Wisconsin. It's Max Inc. Radio on Civic Media. Saturday night, 6 p.m. to midnight. We are local music.
27% of the American workforce, and some even say 30%, were in unions who had representation and who clearly did not have to worry about whether or not they were going to get their fair share. But I'm definitely going to fight for people who get the short end of the stick in this society only because they don't have representation. That's who I am.
Check out the Earl Ingram Show every day from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Only on WAUK 540 AM, 101 FM, The Shaw.
My mother was very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign and she wasn't even really sure where she was at.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matinaire, and we are here on Thursday, January 26th. And you said that we got a text that came through?
We do. We were talking about Governor Evers' proposal to spend hundreds of millions of dollars investing in mental health services in the state, not just for adults, but also especially for our kids. Texter from the 608 says, for perspective, UW is only one of 4 or so ERs in Dane County alone that can handle pediatric psych emergencies, let alone for the rest of the state. Many counties have no youth psychiatric abilities at their hospitals, and those kids have to get transferred to either Madison or Milwaukee.
That is really good perspective. Thank you for the...
Yes, thank you for the text. 844-967-2789 anytime you want to check in.
I think we're going to move on.
Let me play this clip from Governor Evers, just because I think it's so appropriate. This is not a partisan issue.
Yes.
This is not only happening to one side or another, and this is what Governor Evers had to say during his State of the State on Tuesday night.
And that includes state resources to support 988, the new suicide and crisis lifeline, which went live in 2022 thanks to our Senator Tammy Baldwin, as well as increased support for peer-run and community-based services across the state. Mental health deals with everybody here, you know, not just this side also. We cannot.
When he said that, because we talked yesterday about how that was not written in the speech and it was improvised.
Right.
Do you think he said it because he saw no one on the Republican side clapping?
Well, they didn't clap for anything.
Yeah.
But again, I just think it's a point that's worth making, like clean water.
Yeah.
This is not a partisan issue. This is something we should all be able to agree on.
Well, most of the things that he was talking about are not partisan issues. Clean water, mental health, schools. Because it's not like, you know, as much as there's a school choice battle, there's not like a ton of school choice, like options in other parts of the less populated parts of the state.
Right.
Right. There's a hard enough chance just like trying to get enough public schools with enough kids in those schools without having to bus them for an hour.
Right.
Because, I mean, last year, I have this bookmarked, but we haven't talked about it yet. There was like a huge increase in the last census across Wisconsin of how many more cities were moved to the category of being rural because their population declined. So they dropped under 5,000 people in the last 10 years, and that reclassifies them of what, and it also reclassifies what kind of funding they get,
Sure.
like what type of village or town or whatever that they are.
Sure.
And there's going to be ramifications for that, including, I'm sure, schools and like how close your schools are and how much they need to be consolidated because of resources. And like none of this is partisan.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. Anyways, but speaking of that call line, this came out yesterday. So this would have been
988.
988. So this came out the day after the state of the state, but call volume for that number in Wisconsin has like skyrocketed. So this is in the months since it started, the crisis centers across the country debuted in July as a bipartisan bill. But across the country, there's huge call volumes, and Wisconsin's no different. But between August and December 2022, Wisconsin's 988 Crisis Lifeline received 29,501 calls, a 66% jump in call volume compared to the same time period in 2021 when it wasn't a 3-digit number.
Yeah.
It was a longer number that you had to remember. But what's great about it is you don't have to necessarily pick up the phone and call someone. You can text.
Which is great because some people want to be anonymous.
And especially a lot of kids.
Yep.
And I think it's also, privacy of just if you want to be able to talk to someone and not necessarily have your parents know, but you're living in the same house. And so you want to be able to text and not be overheard on the phone.
Sure.
But there's also, I think, a web chat if there's like a website too. And so, again, part of the money to bolster this service is to hire more people. Because right now, I think this article says something like 70. Yeah, so here we go. During the last 5 months, 78% of the calls received in Wisconsin were answered in state, but then 13% were sent to backup call centers out of state. And so the hope is that more and more can be serviced, more and more of those calls and texts and everything can be serviced by in-state call centers. But they need to be able to hire people.
Well, and then too, it's great that they have someone to talk to, but that person's responsibility then is to direct them to where they can get services.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not, I don't think the people who are answering, they're doing triage, right? Of like, where do we send?
Not the psychic hotline. They're not going to, they're going to send you, the goal is to send you on to a mental health professional. But again, if we don't have enough of those people, where are these people who are calling for help going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you or someone is considering suicide or needing some mental health, again, that number is 988 or text HOPE line to 741-741. But
take advantage of it.
Yes. Yes. But some other headlines, maybe a little bit happier headlines, at least this one. This is like when I read this, I'm like, this is how capitalism and the free market is supposed to work. It's one thing, as much as I think when the first rendition of this was Mark Cuban launching his drug company,
his prescription place.
Yes, Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company. I love that he had to put his name on it though. And it's an awesome thing that he's doing. To be fair,
it is
because they basically cut out all of the middleman and it provides complete price transparency from the manufacturing to prescription delivery and everywhere in between. And they cut out all the marketing. It's like the stuff that jacks up the prices. And so this is just a little bit from the homepage is we're redefining the pharmaceutical supply chain with transparent prices. The Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company. This is a ridiculous name. Is fundamentally changing the way the pharmaceutical industry operates. And
they got to hate him for that.
Oh, yeah. And it's been successful so far as him being as a philanthropic billionaire, then there's a better way to do this. And, some of I think when this first was announced, some of the cancer treatment and like how much the hospitals and everything like jack it up, like they're offering it as a fraction of the cost. So now, because it's a good idea,
a business model that works.
And like I said, this is how the free market is supposed to work. Yesterday, Amazon announced the launch of RX Pass, better name, an add-on to Prime memberships that provides subscribers with access to 50 generic prescription drugs for a $5 a month fee.
So Jeff Bezos didn't put his name first?
No, he did not, which is kind of shocking. You'd think he would, as the guy who thanked everybody for letting him go to space. I'd just like to thank all the customers and all the employees at Amazon who made this happen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So this will launch immediately in most states. It's not in California or Texas, which are obviously the most populous states, but it's going to include generic drugs that treat common conditions. So it's like blood pressure medicine,
which a lot of people around, including myself.
Yeah. Anxiety, acid reflux, hair loss. I wonder if you can get Viagra on there.
You can get Viagra anywhere.
But Viagra's not generic. That's the name brand stuff, right?
There's got to be a generic.
At this point, there has to be, right? Like the statute of limitations on that patent has passed.
If I got some name suggestions for you.
Save it for the fun hour, the no sour, haha, power hour.
Okay.
Whatever we're calling that. But the service is not available for people on Medicare or Medicaid. Maybe that's because those are separate. I don't know why. But it also, which sucks, it doesn't offer insulin.
Well, that really angers me.
I wonder if Mark Cuban's offers insulin. That is the most infuriating thing to me to this day.
It's
just
a
drug that literally people have to take to stay alive. I was in that, the Instagram account that we reference every once in a while, Inside History. I saw one the other week, and I don't have it up, so I might botch the details of it. But they over 100 years ago, so I think this was like early 1900s, before it was like basically when they realized insulin can save lives, there was all of these children in a diabetic coma because they didn't have insulin yet. And it was just like, this was their fate. And somehow they tried they gave them a shot of insulin, and all these kids like woke up.
Oh my gosh.
And like that was the turning point of knowing like, oh, this is like, they need this. And so like the fact that we are just fine that insulin costs like $10 in Canada and hundreds of dollars here for something they literally need. This is not an add-on. This is not for hair loss.
And it's not
Viagra.
It's not for vanity.
But the point of all of this is it's Amazon's answer to the Mark Cuban cost plus drug company. But the thing is, they obviously have to scale up because, like I said, theirs is 50 different. I think it's 50 different conditions, but the Mark Cuban drug company, the Mark Cuban cost plus drug company, offers over 1,100 different prescriptions. So it's a lot more than Amazon, but obviously Amazon's just starting.
Sure. And checking the website right now, again, the Mark Cuban cost plus drugs website. I searched for insulin and it said there are no results. So
there might just be a stranglehold on that, but in ways that they can't get around.
I don't know, but unless, is it named a particular thing? That I do not know.
That's true. But this, for now, I think on both sides isn't necessarily driving down the cost of name brand drugs, but generics do account for like 86% of the U.S. prescriptions in as of 2022. But again, I think this is the way it's supposed to be. It's like create companies, and if there's a business model that's working for one company, you create competition. And like the problem with these patents and these drug companies is they can price fix things. And it's not just price fixing like Gucci bags, it's like, again, it's stuff that people need
to live.
But speaking of a different kind of prescription, so last month, the FDA approved abortion pills to be able to be provided without having to go to a doctor's office. But there's obviously states like Wisconsin where those were not going to be legal, and that was pretty clear from the get-go. But the manufacturer of those pills, GenBio Pro, filed a federal lawsuit yesterday seeking to have West Virginia's ban on abortion pills deemed unconstitutional on the grounds that the FDA's approval of the drug should trump states' restrictions.
Ooh.
More than half of all U.S. abortions are medication abortions, according to the Guttmacher Institute, and questions concerning the legality of these abortions have proliferated since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. But a separate suit was also filed yesterday by a North Carolina doctor challenging the state's ban. But I feel like that's really, I wouldn't have even thought about that as far as the FDA being a federal agency. Because it's a federal agency, does that trump state laws?
States' rights, Kristen, states' rights.
No, I know, but I think I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's interesting that they're trying. And obviously, as it's a company, they're obviously doing it so that they can, again, free market, right? This is the one time, because for them, it's their bottom line, probably why they're doing this lawsuit. It was like, no, we want to be able to have more distribution, but it isn't interesting as far as a pro-choice person, an interesting loophole that we will follow and see where this lawsuit goes.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with this.
All right, coming up next, the James Beard Award semifinalists have been announced, and there's a fair amount of Wisconsin restaurants on the list. So we will go over those when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Just keep breathing and breathing and breathing and breathing. No, I gotta keep on breathing.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
We have to really understand how critically important a time this is. Time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Because my voice has always been and will continue to be for people who don't have a voice.
Tune in to The Earl Ingram Show every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Only on WAUK 540 AM, 101.1 FM, The Shaw.
Wait a minute. How about this? Listen to me, you lantern-jawed cretin, you horned-eyed homunculus. You are going to do what's right for the people of Wisconsin. You're putting cancer water in our water, destroying the greatest university system in the country, and public education. Knock it off. That is unlikely to be said. That's what I'd say.
Tune in to Matt Flynn Direct, Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 p.m.
What is dedication?
I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Cloudy this afternoon with a chance of scattered snow showers. Highs level off around 31. Northwesterly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight. Lows level off around 15. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow. Snow showers likely at times. High temperatures reach up to 33. 2 to 4 inches of snow today through Saturday night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
To the food, oh rude. 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 Oh, bam, 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 I got a girl.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. I am Kristen Bry. We got Jane Matnair on the board. We got you, the business owner, applying to the $1 million ad giveaway at civicmedia.us/million.
So exciting.
So exciting. I'm excited to see how many we have after the show, because we were getting some updates on our internal team chat room.
Yep.
That was very exciting, because I think it was one of these things, because we've obviously never done this before. Jane, you've said you've never been anywhere that's done this before.
No.
And so there was a part of it was like, are we just going to get overloaded? Are we going to get 5? But I think so far it's progressing at a steady pace that is like Goldilocks, like right in the middle of where we want it to be. But don't miss out. civicmedia.us/million for your chance, or for someone you know who would benefit from this chance to get some free ad space promos on our airwaves. So speaking of some, I guess, small businesses, we could call them, but the James Beard Award semifinalists have been announced.
It's a big thing. This is a big thing.
It is a big thing
in the food world.
Are you a self-identified foodie?
I am not. I'm not fancy enough. I just, who did we have on who was the tater tot purist?
Oh, Francesca Hong.
Francesca Hong.
Who owns a restaurant.
Yes. And she's a tater tot purist and doesn't want fancy schmancy things done to her tots. And I kind of approach most of my food like that. When they start doing weird infusions and frothy, bubbly things that I just, no,
not interested. No. Well, I don't think I was reading through this list. I don't know if I've been to any of these, but I'm going to add them to the list. Yeah. I'm also not necessarily, I've never been someone who is like, I need to go to the new restaurant and like try it. This is, no matter what city I've lived in, I've always just been like, where are we going? Okay,
what's
great.
Good? Yeah.
But going through some of these, so Lupe and Iris, which is in downtown Milwaukee,
okay.
And I haven't even heard of it, but is a semifinalist for, but maybe didn't hear of it because it is a semifinalist for best new restaurant in the country.
Cool.
And so one of the chefs won the Beard Award for Best Chef in the Midwest in 2008 for his work at Lake Park Bistro.
Nice.
Which I have eaten there.
I have too. Beautiful place.
Beautiful. Amy and Jason Kirstein, Joe Munch, and Dan Snyder of Black Shoe Hospitality are semifinalists for Outstanding Restaurateur. And I think that is the group that operates Story Hill BKC.
Okay.
Which I have eaten at, and it's great. I love that place. But it's Story Hill, Buttermint Finer Dining and Cocktails, and Maxie's. But I have not been to Buttermint or Maxie's, but I've been told that I have to go.
Well, and if you're a seafood person, I hear Maxie's is just unbelievable.
All right. Good to know. Wickman House up in Door County and Ellison Bay is a semifinalist for Outstanding Restaurant. And I haven't been there.
Hey, road trip.
Where did we go? We went somewhere on our Door County trip in 2021 that only has like 2 tables, and it was excellent. I'm hoping that it's not that, and I just don't remember what the name of it is, but I'll look at the break. But where else? You know what was funny as I was listening through this is, would you consider Wisconsin in the Midwest region or the Great Lakes region? Because they're different.
There are. Then I would claim the Great Lakes region.
So would I, considering one of our entire coasts of our state is on a Great Lake. Or in the Midwest region.
What?
The Great Lakes region was Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, but not Wisconsin.
What, we're stuck with Iowa again?
We're stuck with Iowa and Minnesota. And I was like, that's not geographically responsible.
We need to file a complaint.
But yeah, I just thought this was so. Jamie Huang of Ahan, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, is a national semifinalist for Emerging Chef, and that is in Madison. Andrew Hutchinson of Madison Sourdough is a semifinalist for Outstanding Pastry Chef or Baker. I think that's in Madison Sourdough. I'm trying to think if that's on the east side and if I've been there. Yeah, it's on Willie Street. I have been there. It's great. And then the last one, this is for best chef in the Midwest, because they break it down by all the different regions. And like, not shockingly, New York, Texas, and California have their own, they are their own region upon themselves because there are so many restaurants.
Okay, fine.
But Wisconsin's semifinalists for best chef in the Midwest include Dan Jacobs and Dan Van Wright of Esther Eve in Milwaukee's 3rd Ward, Gregory Leone of Amelinda in downtown Milwaukee, and Madison chefs Francisco Magano of Osteria, Papavero, and I should probably just stop.
Say it really fast. Just say them really fast.
Just say really fast.
Say it really
I'm
fast.
butchering all
with
of
a lot
these.
of authority. Say it fast with authority.
So then the finalists we announced March 29th. So maybe just like the Oscars, I need to go eat at all these restaurants so I can say that I tried them. But I have a lot of movies to watch. But tomorrow, actually, we screwed this up last week. Matt Miller is actually going to be here tomorrow.
Looking forward to it.
We screwed up the dates last week. He was out of the country.
Oh.
He was in Aruba. So we'll talk to him about his time and we'll compare notes. But he will be here tomorrow. Matt Miller is the On Milwaukee culture editor. So we're going to not only talk about the Oscar nominations, but the Razzie nominations have also come out.
And some changes with the Razzies that I'm really happy about.
I don't know about this. We'll save it.
We'll save it for tomorrow.
We'll save it for tomorrow. But congratulations to all the semifinalists. This is obviously a really big deal. And I think in the cooking world, it's nice to be recognized.
Well, and doesn't it just make you appreciate how fortunate we are as a flyover state to have all these incredible restaurants?
Yes.
I mean, we're really, really fortunate.
We've always said that, I mean, especially growing up in Madison, Madison, maybe now Dane County, if you think about all the different communities that have popped up, but Madison is still population-wise like half the size of Milwaukee. And how many good restaurants there are in Madison. And that's always been the case, I feel like, since I was a kid. But Milwaukee has some incredible restaurants too. And so we are really lucky as far as, the
variety.
The variety and not having to go to Chicago to get a good meal.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, it's just nice to get recognition. And so hopefully, knock on wood, in the next couple months, we'll find out if we're going to get any recognition for the Wisconsin Broadcasters Awards. Because that would be fun.
That would be very fun.
It'd be fun to get some recognition. It's fun to win awards.
Sure.
All right. Well, that'll about do it for this hour. Coming up next when we're back, Frank Weisvilas, who is the native reporter for Gannett All of USA Today, Wisconsin. He's going to be here to talk about one thing that's not so happy and another thing that's very happy as far as articles that he's written about in the last couple weeks. So stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Got a gal named Daisy. She almost drives me crazy. She knows how to love me, yes indeed. Boy, you don't know what she do to me. To the booty, oh Rudy. 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 Oh,
Dad, I picked up your pills, made your lunch, and your laundry is done.
When you care for a loved one, you take care of everything. But are you taking care of yourself? Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
It's 4 a.m. and you're sucking baby snot through a tube because she's congested. If you love her that much, love her enough to make sure she's buckled in the right car seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
It's scary. Maybe I'm coming a little bit more left, but...
Well, it's not left. It's good governance, Steve.
It's good to be exposed to different ideas, and I do appreciate that you do put that out there on the airways, because a lot of times where you just get a little soundbite of this or a little bit of that, and that's the end of it. You're to be commended for that.
Dave, I'm glad you finally come around to commending the greatest radio show ever, man. Follow.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance.
I'm Steve Kathan. The Justice Department says it infiltrated and shut down a major ransomware operation. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco.
We will strike back against cybercrime using any means possible
And today's action reflects that strategy.
Attorney General Merrick Garland says Hive, as it was called, extorted more than $100 million from more than 1,500 companies and institutions around the world.
In one instance, in August 2021, Hive affiliates deployed ransomware on computers owned by a Midwest hospital at a time when COVID-19 was surging in communities around the world.
It's not clear if the shutdown of the outfit will also lead to any arrests. The government says the economy grew at an annual rate of 2.9% during the final 3 months of last year. CBS's Jill Schlesinger says it took place against a backdrop of inflation and recession fears.
2022 was a tale of two economies in the United States. In the first half of the year, we saw a contraction that was due to higher prices and rising interest rates. But in the second half of the year, consumers and businesses stepped up and spent. In the last 3 months of the year, consumer spending increased at a 2.1% annualized pace.
Reports from Ukraine say 11 people were killed in today's round of missile and drone attacks. The BBC's James Waterhouse is in Kyiv.
This is a continuation of a tactic by Moscow to take out Ukraine's infrastructure, to deprive people of power and energy. And it also coincides with this really significant declaration by both the US and Germany that it will supply modern tanks to Ukraine.
A South Carolina jury is hearing from the police officer who found the bodies of attorney Alex Murdaugh's wife and adult son at the disgraced attorney's murder trial. Daniel Green is a sergeant on the police force.
Maggie's body face down on the ground, a large pool of blood around her head.
And we see an individual standing. Who is that?
The individual standing in the background would be Mr. Murdaugh.
Prosecutors say they plan to use cell phone evidence to help make their case. The CBS's Jim Krasula has more on the break of a ring that was allegedly targeting the medical field.
25 people in South Florida have been charged by federal investigators with being part of a fraudulent nursing diploma scheme. The bogus diplomas and transcripts allowed purchasers to take the National Nursing Board exam and, after passing it, to obtain licenses and jobs in several states. Each defendant faces up to 20 years in prison.
California Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff says he's going to run for the United States Senate. Checking Wall Street right now, the Dow is up 45 points. This is CBS News.
Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance, so you only pay for what you need. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Natnair. Here's what you need to know. If you still need help with the rent and utilities after the COVID-19 pandemic, you must apply before January.
Hey, Frank, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Good to have you
How are
back.
you doing?
I'm good. You know, we're
Thanks
doing
for having
all
me.
right. Say it again.
In rent and utility bills over the past 2 years.
Thanks
Sorry
for
to hear
having
you.
me.
Oh, yes, I quote. So, and base be less, right?
Yes, base
Got it.
bills. Mhm.
Base be less. Perfect. All right, so then I think we'll start with the heavy stuff, and we'll
Okay.
start with the MacArthur Foundation report. And kind of, it's mostly just overview. Like, what was the report? How does it... What does that look like in Wisconsin? What are the recommendations? And so if that kind of takes us to 12/18, then we'll come back after the break, and then we'll talk about the Ojibwe games, which that sounds a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah.
But if we kind of power through the first topic and we wrap up, I'll let you go at 12/18. But otherwise, you remember, it's very. Hopefully, I'm better than I was when you were here over the summer, because it's been a couple months. I've gotten better at this, but yeah, pretty straightforward.
All right, great.
Our celebration is your chance to work alongside Civic Media's amazing sales team to create a custom radio advertising campaign promoting your business for free. The $1 million advertising giveaway today only. There are some rules. Go to civicmedia.us/million.
You've got questions about navigating the healthcare system? Kristen Lyerly helps us find answers and discusses other issues at the intersection of healthcare and politics. Hometown Health, Thursday mornings at 7:30 on Up North News Radio.
Dueling Tangents with Luke and Brian.
I'm really trying hard not to go insane from the mind screw that is this situation with the I was going to say the GAB, but now it's the WEC, which was audited by the LAB, and then it's now screwed up by the GOP, and we're all SOL. Good for us. Congratulations.
Look at all those acronyms. Yeah.
We're the winners.
Tune in for Dueling Tangents every weekday at 2.
I grew up hearing that women are bad with money, but I pay bills and take care of my family, so I'm pretty good with money. And now I'm taking control of my financial future by saving for retirement. Jumpstart your retirement savings at WeSaySaveIt.org. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Big Bend to Menominee Falls. Always streaming at WAUK.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Join the conversation, 844-967-2789. And a reminder, if you like our show, tell your friends.
Spread the word.
Spread the word. Tim Miller, his title for his piece on this is, "No, you do not have a constitutional right to post Hunter Biden's dick pic on Twitter."
The story just kind of went limp.
And on that note, we're taking a break.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us today during our noon hour, second hour, your lunch hour. As always, you can join the conversation at 844-967-2789. Later in the hour, we are going to PolitiFact decided to get the facts correct on the difference between a drag show and a strip show, because a certain former governor conflated the two. So we're gonna talk about what PolitiFact decided to be very clear on.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and then there's also right now you could get paid to eat cheese.
I'm so there.
Right?
Oh yeah.
$1,000. So we'll talk about that. But to start off this hour, we are welcoming back Frank Faes-Vilas, who is the Native American Affairs reporter for the USA Today Wisconsin publications. And I think it was back over the summer we had him on, but he does so much interesting reporting on so many historic, like both current events and historical events when it comes to Native issues in Wisconsin. And the one that caught my eye that I want to talk about first with you today is you published this earlier this month, and it's a report, a national report that I think when I read your article, it was like not surprising because, racism, but also like seeing the actual hard numbers of what it is still shocking. So I wanted to have you on to talk about that report and what it looks like in Wisconsin. And so welcome back, Frank.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for that introduction. So this report is, it still shocks a lot of readers. They write to me, they email me. It is still shocking to some people. But the MacArthur Foundation found that nationally, Indigenous people, the incarceration rates for them are much higher and disproportionate than for other ethnic groups. And there's still a lot of research to be done. The report states, but yeah, and then here in Wisconsin, we had the report a couple of years ago. We sent out a public records request to certain county jails, and in certain counties, like in Vilas County up north where the Lac du Flambeau Reservation is, the county has a population of about 15% Native Americans, but the county jail there at times could be more than half of Native Americans inmates.
Yeah.
So it's very shocking to a lot of people.
Well, and that was because I think and this is why I feel like your reporting is so important, because a lot of times when we talk about the criminal justice system, the imagery that comes to mind is Black populations. And
Right.
certainly when we're down in Milwaukee, that is the disproportionate amount of incarceration of, different zip codes down here. But I think for people who live in central northern Wisconsin, it's similar stats. It's just a different community.
Right.
And that was like why I wanted to highlight this, because it's it's still the racism, because what you were saying, I mean, at least what it said in the report was that it's not only that there's a higher rate of incarceration, it's also like harsher sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And so as far as, I mean, is this stuff beyond the MacArthur Foundation doing this report, in your reporting, was this something that you already basically knew?
Right. Yeah, it's something we've been working on. We found out a couple of years ago. It was pretty shocking to us at first as well. But and you're right. There has been a lot of research done in urban areas with Black populations, and some of those there hasn't been a lot of research in rural areas where reservations are. But the researchers suspect it's the same type of racism where people of color are targeted more by police, such as, in urban areas, white people or white kids smoke weed or have, public intoxication just as much as people of color do. But people of color are targeted more by police. You don't see, them enforcing public intoxication around university campuses on the weekends as much as urban neighborhoods. But yeah, and there's been a few individuals who have told me that up in northern Wisconsin that they're even afraid to put a dream catcher or a feather to hang it from their visor in their vehicle, because that's one way that police can target them. So a lot of them have resorted to kind of taping it on their windshield, because that's technically an infraction to Wisconsin driving codes. You're not supposed to have anything blocking the windshield, and these feathers are usually small. You can see right through them, but that's one way people are telling me that they're targeted up north.
So one of the things, it was as much looking at current data, but the report also had trying to put things in like a historical context, correct?
Right. Just looking at the intergenerational trauma and just being forced on reservations in the first place. A lot of communities have it's no shock that there's a lot of alcohol abuse and drug use on some of these reservations as a result of being forced onto these reservations, and their culture taken away, forceful assimilation throughout the generations. So a lot of these offenses are drug related, and the federal government has a historical context of oppressing Native American peoples throughout the country. I know some readers have told me don't do the crime if you can't do the time, but that doesn't explain the higher rate at which they're targeted and this historical context. I know some of the recommendations, instead of just putting people in jail, they have traditional ways to kind of help people where they a young person who has been doing drugs, they can sit down with an elder and get counseling. They have and so one of the recommendations the report is making is to give more jurisdiction and authority to the tribal courts and to the tribal court system, to help people on their reservation rather than just throwing them in county jails. So yeah, that's one way. But it definitely needs more research, and that's something we're going to look at more later on this year as well.
That's great. We're talking to Frank Vaisvilas, who is the Native American Affairs reporter for the USA Today Wisconsin Publications. And Jane, you had a question?
I did, Frank. We were talking last hour about Governor Evers wanting to invest a lot more money into mental health services all across the state. And we were just mentioning how rural Wisconsin already really has a problem with healthcare providers and mental health providers, and certainly child psychologists and things like that. It's got to be even worse for people who are on native lands in Wisconsin.
Right. And it does vary from reservation to reservation, but a lot of the tribes, they do have their own health clinics, but it's, usually what happens outside the reservation as well. And another, surprising why these rates are so shocking to people is because like in Vilas County and a lot of these rural counties, the tribes are the largest employers of both native and non-native peoples. So they're out there providing to the economy, and they have large school systems and healthcare systems, and But definitely more funding is always needed, and they are definitely underfunded by the federal government in most cases.
You mentioned hearing from readers. What is, I think you, like we said, you are not only the current Native American affairs reporter for USA Today, you're also the first one, right?
Right.
And so it's the first time that there's a specific reporter covering this beat because we talked about this last time you were here. Wisconsin has, as far as east of the Mississippi, the largest Native population in any state. And it's a 12 different tribes?
12 tribes, yes.
12 tribes. And so as far as readers taking the energy and the time to reach out to you, is it mostly positive and people appreciating your reporting? Or does some of the, like you said, if you don't do the crime, if you can't do the time. So is it, do you feel supported in your reporting from readership?
Yes, I would say probably about 3/4, 75% of the readers are very supportive of the information, and this is very educational work a lot too, because just shining a light, people, not knowing that reservations were even still here in Wisconsin. But some of it is critical, and but it's some of them, I do try to take their points as well, such as in this next report, I do want to address that, don't do the crime if you don't want to do the time. I want to try to debunk that myth more. So, and that's definitely what I'll focus on more in the next report. So,
yeah. I mean, and part of that is also doing a journalist, because there's obviously other people I work with down at Milwaukee Journal Sentinel who they can't ever get anything. They can't make everyone happy, which is not your job. Your job is to educate and inform people. And so I find so much of what you write so interesting, as far as just the different stories and the different things that I would have never known. And one of which is what we're going to talk about when we come back from the next break, which I think this is a much happier topic. And I think it is so cool. So the Ojibwe Olympic Games are returning to Wisconsin, to Madeline Island, after the government banned them 150 years ago. So I think this is so cool. And I'm so excited for you to be here to tell us more about it and kind of the expectations, especially because it sounds like this warm winter might cause issues of people trying to get to Madeline Island. And so we're going to take a break right now. But when we come back, Frank Vassilis will still be here and talk about these games. That sounds so fun. All right. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.
All right. So when we come back, I'll just set it up and you can just share the different details from what is the origin of this and how they kind of got it started last year and what the expectations are for this year and some of the games and the fun things about that. And then I also saw that yesterday, we didn't mention it on air, but I check Wisconsin Historical Society on this day in history, and I saw that yesterday was the anniversary of the Ojibwe treaties being reaffirmed in 1983. Do you know much about that if I were to ask about it, or should I just ignore it?
Is that that's for the Supreme Court, the spearfishing rights, or?
So this said, on this day in 1983, a 3-judge panel of the United States Court of Appeals ruled that the Ojibwe lands bans of Lake Superior, legally retained hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the spearfishing. Yeah, that was the start of the walleye wars of the 80s up in northern Wisconsin. So.
All right, so if I just be like, this was yesterday, and like, could you tell us more about? Like, I could just throw it to you. It doesn't have to be like a lot of detail, but just we like to, when interesting things in fact in history happen, we like to talk about it on air.
Right, of course.
All right, awesome.
Northwesterly winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight. Lows level off around 15. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow. Snow showers likely at times. High temperatures reach up to 33. 2 to 4 inches of snow today through Saturday night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
WAUK 540 AM, Franklin's choice for News Talk Radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. We are talking to Frank Vasvilas, who is the Native Americans Affairs reporter for the USA Today Wisconsin publications. And we're going to talk about a different kind of Olympics than that music. But you put this out, I think, this week, as far as the Ojibwe Olympic Games are returning to Wisconsin after being banned 150 years ago. And I just think this sounds so cool. So give us more details about what this is and kind of the history of it.
Sure. Yeah, there's a group on Madeline Island dedicated to kind of revolving the Ojibwe culture there. And it was banned by the federal government under the pretense that there was gambling involved. But, during that time, the federal government was kind of banning all cultural events from Indigenous peoples across the country. But Madeline Island and the city of LaPointe there was the capital of the Ojibwe Nation, and which is includes Wisconsin and parts of the U.S. and Canada now, and they would have these games there where they would throw these javelins, and then and they're called snow snakes, and before they were used for hunting before the rifle came along, but they kept the skills to just for these games, and this is how they would settle clan disputes, some of their cases, and yeah, they would do this every year, and the government's kind of released the ban in the 1970s, but these games haven't come back until last year when a group of individuals decided to bring it back. It was just a handful, then word got around and 100 people showed up to the island, and now organizers are concerned that 500 or 1,000 people might show up this year. So
concerned, that's because that was what I've read the article. It's like you'd think that if you're throwing this event, 500, 1,000 people, infinitely increasing the size of your event from one year to the next would be a good thing. But because we've had such a warm winter, I guess apparently even up in Lake Superior, because we talked last week that Lake Michigan's doesn't have a lot of ice on it, but apparently Lake Superior also doesn't have a lot of ice on it. So people are worried about driving on the ice right now to get people to the island.
Right. Yeah. I've been following the pulse of one of the organizers, and he's posting pictures on Facebook. It's kind of icy, but it's still it's still there's still a lot of water there. It's not really safe to drive on right now. Last year it was deemed safe on February 3rd for about a little bit over a week that was deemed safe to drive on. But there's other ways to get there. They have snowmobiles or small boats and snowshoes, but they can only take a few people at a time there. So they're worried about if hundreds of people show up, how they would get them there. So
and it's where are they all going to stay too, Frank? Because LaPointe is tiny.
Yes. There's one hotel open on the island during the games, and that's fully booked for elders and coaches of the games now. So yeah, they would have to stay on the mainland somewhere, miles and miles away.
And so you said the javelin throwing. Are there other games, or what is the variety of games that will be played or competitions?
Yeah, it's mostly with this javelin throw.
Okay.
They're throwing for distance and accuracy. They're trying to throw them through hoops. Sometimes they could go as far as, a few hundred yards. But if the ice is smooth enough, such as across a lake or a river, they can go as far as a mile. I know some tribes had adopted that technique to send messages during the wintertime.
Wait, how does it go a mile?
Just keep on sliding. If you keep it straight and there's nothing to stop it, it just keeps going. So
that's crazy.
That is crazy. Hold. And so, and one of the other things, it worked out well because when we were talking about having you come on, because yesterday was also, in speaking of Ojibwe, that I saw on the Wisconsin Historical Society. They have a great little page of on this day in history, and sometimes it's items that are not that interesting, but sometimes they're really interesting. And so yesterday, not today, but yesterday in 1983, it was the anniversary of the Ojibwe treaties being reaffirmed. Mm-hmm. And so could you tell us a little bit more about what that meant for the tribe?
Sure. So basically, when the Ojibwe ceded their territory in northern Wisconsin to the U.S. government, they wrote in their treaty that they would still be able to hunt and fish off reservation in the ceded territory and in the Northwoods. But for 100 years or so, the state of Wisconsin kind of ignored that or didn't know about it until these activists, I think it was in the 70s, intentionally got fined by the DNR for hunting, off reservation during the off season. And they went all the way to the federal court, and sure enough, the courts agreed. It's here in this treaty, and the treaty is still valid. And that kind of sparked these walleye wars, where protesters, where non-native protesters were, they started, being aggressive towards spearfishers, especially during the springtime. They would spearfish walleye on these lakes, and then they would fear that the Ojibwe were getting an unfair portion or getting them first, and they have police there, and there was a lot of shooting incidents, a lot of boat ramming. There's a book about this called the Walleye War. It's very, interesting, and people on the reservations, like in Lac du Flambeau and La Poudre, this is still very, etched in their memory, and they still talk about it a lot, and, still part of the history, even though it's not really taught too much in public schools in Wisconsin, which is a shame, but it is a big part of Wisconsin history.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you got coming in the last minute? Any interesting stories we should look out for that you're working on?
Sure. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, we're going to look further into those incarceration rates, and then also into education in Act 31, where the state, seems not to be living up to its mandate to, have more education about Indigenous peoples in public schools. So we're going to look at who's accountable for that and why it's not, being done properly. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, Frank Weisvilas is the Native American Affairs reporter for USA Today, Wisconsin, and all the different publications. We will link these articles that we talked about today, and also you can subscribe to his newsletter on First Nations people. Thank you so much for spending time today with us, Frank.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right. When we come back, PolitiFact. What is a drag show? We define it. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Thank you.
The Shaw 101 FM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
CBS News Brief. Law enforcement infiltrates the Hive. That's the name of a top ransomware outfit that Attorney General Merrick Garland says has been put out of business.
The Justice Department dismantled an international ransomware network responsible for extorting and attempting to extort hundreds of millions of dollars from victims in the United States and around the world.
At least 11 reported dead in the latest missile and drone attacks by Russia in Ukraine. The BBC's James Waterhouse in Kyiv.
This is a continuation of a tactic by Moscow to take out Ukraine's infrastructure, to deprive people of power and energy.
At the Alex Murdaugh murder trial in South Carolina.
This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck
Prosecutors playing police video from when an officer found the bodies of Murdaugh's wife and adult son. The government says the economy grew at a 2.9% annual clip over the final 3 months of last year. CBS News Brief. I'm Steve Kathan.
A progressive voice from Beaver Dam to Kenosha. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. The State Bar of Wisconsin says the shortage of prosecutors and public defenders is a constitutional crisis. The lawyers group says the right to a fair and speedy trial in Wisconsin is at stake. WisPolitics.com reports 24 district attorneys in Wisconsin have left office before their terms expired in the past 4 years. The public defender's office says it's about 20% short-staffed. New drivers in Wisconsin got to skip their road tests during the pandemic. Now, the DMV wants to make its driving test waiver permanent. The DMV says 87% of new drivers got a waiver since May of 2020. There's plenty of concern that not testing new drivers on the road is making driving more dangerous. In sports, the Bucks beat Denver last night 107-99. Maryland shelled the Badgers 73-55. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s, like go back to college, learn to skateboard. Whoa. Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. At aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a free 3-minute chat with the friendly digital retirement coach, Avo, and receive personalized tips to help boost your savings. Start chatting with Avo today at aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Max Inc. Radio, we are local music with Pete from the Skin Tones.
Here, you have been warned. Not only Madison, the rest of Wisconsin and the U.S. Skin Tones, we're coming at you. We're going to be committing rock atrocities. We're fit, we're in shape, we are tight, we are muscular, we are attractive for our ages, and we are sexy as hell.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio Saturday nights, 6 p.m. to midnight on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Up North News Radio is Wisconsin's new choice for progressive talk about important state issues, from the team that brings you the news through social media, newsletters, and here on the radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Join me weekday mornings from 6 to 8 a.m.
I was just curious as to why you called it the Paul Revere Show.
The Paul Revere Show is named this way because the poem that we all know, the famous Ride, the poem was written to rally the troops to fight slavery and fight for democracy. And so I named the show the Paul Revere Show because I thought it was the time to get on the air and talk about democracy.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. always on the Civic Media app.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. Jane Madnair is on the board. We are on the Civic Media Network across Wisconsin and halfway through the show.
Yeah, it went fast.
Going really fast today.
It is.
So I, PolitiFact, I feel like it's the part of the Poynter Institute, and they do national fact checks on things that are said by politicians, and similar to like Snopes as far as taking the very much objective facts.
Is this true or not?
Is this true or not? And they give it a rating. We did a lot of these because Milwaukee Journal Sentinel's partners is their partner for Wisconsin fact checking. And we were doing a lot of these in the lead up to the election and trying to get the accurate information out there as far as things that Tony Evers had said, or Tim Michaels had said, or Mandela Barnes, or Ron Johnson. And sometimes they were true. Sometimes they were very false. Sometimes they were just stupid. And sometimes it was pants on fire. I think it's a Washington Post that does the 3 Pinocchios.
Yeah.
So I probably am not the first person to think of this, but one of the, and I probably could not get Journal Sentinel to do this, although we did get Bill Glauber, veteran reporter Bill Glauber, to do a TikTok, and it went out yesterday.
Oh,
and
cool!
So we're very excited about having more people put themselves on camera and summarize their stories. But on TikTok, there is a filter So there's like different things you can do on TikTok that change your face, or you like put a green screen background or do special effects without having to know like fancy stuff like editing software.
Okay,
This
so they make
has
it
all-
easy
yeah.
for you.
And so, there's different apps that like change your face and make you look, it's like how Snapchat was, it makes you look goofy or whatever. And there's one that if you look straight onto the camera, it looks normal. Then as soon as you turn your head, it's a Pinocchio nose. And I was like, there's something here to play with in the PolitiFact of when it's like pants on fire wrong and just like reading it aloud of what it is and then turning your face. And be like,
I love
you're
that.
lying. But anyways, I digress. So, Mr. Scott Walker,
former governor.
He's the president of YAF now. Is he still doing that? As far as
it's young Republicans, isn't it?
his relevance to making public statements that people listen to. So on January 5th, 2023, on Twitter, he wrote, "Let's be clear, drag shows are strip shows."
Excuse me?
Let's be clear, drag shows are strip shows. And go ahead.
Drag queens are stripping?
That's what he's saying. Let's be clear that these two things are the same thing.
Has he been there?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
And PolitiFact, this has been fact-checked and reported on by Laura Schulte. That is false. That is false. And it's not just false. I was like arguing about what family-friendly drag shows are and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, this is just categorically false. Says the very objective, it is our job to use facts to say yes or no, true or not. It is false. No, drag shows are not the same as strip shows.
No.
I just love that they're like, let's put this stamp on it as far as really, it's not opinion, it is fact that drag shows are not strip shows. And we'll get into some, because I actually learned some of the things in reading the full article. But what's really funny is when asked whether he had ever attended either a strip show or a drag show, Walker did not respond.
At all?
I'm sure it was on Twitter, so he just ignored whatever. Because if he made this claim on Twitter, it's not something like he was being interviewed by a reporter, unless they've specifically reached out to him and were like, "Hey, we're going to run this article. Do you want to respond?"
I'm just curious.
But what I found out is the term drag is a term derived from the ancient Greek theater. It's a Greek word meaning masquerade, and its roots have remained in theatrical performances, always like involving cross-dressing, which we've talked about before with Shakespeare, especially when women couldn't be actors, and so men had to play women. And also the drag term comes from how ridiculously big the costumes were, and they would drag on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And so it's in the difference of what is a drag show. It's not people taking their clothes off. If anything, they're wearing pretty elaborate costumes. Sometimes the banter can get raunchy.
And yeah.
And
naughty.
And naughty. And sometimes it doesn't. And it's sometimes lip syncing and dancing, and sometimes it's stand-up comedy and storytelling or bingo nights. Like it's not a strip show.
Well, what I find amazing about the entire thing, I mean, just think about it. As you said, they put together very elaborate, very involved artifice to pull off this drag character.
Yes.
And so why on earth would they strip that away when the whole point was to manufacture this artificial person?
Exactly. Well, and like I think we typically think of drag as men, cis men or trans men dressing up as a woman, but there's drag kings in the same way that there's drag queens. And so I remember, now you have to remember I went to Berkeley and I was also involved in the like Vagina Monologues crew, the sexual health education crew, like
pretty open-minded.
Very open-minded. And so there was like a drag night. I was on campus, but it was at like a local small theater, and like our group of friends went, and like that was the first time I had seen very amateur, but like drag kings. And it was women who had dressed up as men. And it was still dancing and acting and a character and all this stuff. But I think that there's a drag king group in Milwaukee, because I saw on the Facebook neighborhood group that we're on, someone had posted about their show, and it was like, oh, our neighbor's a performer and stuff. And so it's about a character. It's about performing. And versus, so this is what Merriam-Webster, I love that this is where they went to, is Merriam-Webster dictionary.
You mean PolitiFact went to Merriam-Webster?
PolitiFact. Drag is, quote, entertainment in which performers caricature or challenge gender stereotypes, as by dressing in clothing that is stereotypical of another gender, by using exaggeratedly gendered mannerisms, or by combining elements of stereotypically male and female dress, and often wear elaborate or outrageous costumes. Compared to, what is a strip show? Merriam-Webster says, to strip is to take off clothes, or to remove one's clothes gradually, piece by piece, in a seductive or provocative manner, especially to accompaniment of music. And, and then also under strip, it's not just like a strip club. It's what am I thinking of? Why can't I think of the word?
I don't know.
Burlesque.
Oh, burlesque, yeah.
Which is, burlesque typically is not fully nude.
No, it was all about the tease.
It's all about the tease. And so they're ruling, not that it matters, because the people who want to believe that these drag shows are grooming children probably don't read PolitiFact. But
I think that's a fair bet.
But they are not the same thing. They are not grooming your children.
And they're not stripping.
And they don't deserve violent threats when there's an announcement that some sort of show is going to happen. You know what's really funny is because then and like a school talent show, when, young straight boys who are funny and, confident enough to dress up as cheerleaders, and everyone thinks that's funny, right? It's like the football team dresses up and performs Britney Spears, and that's hilarious, and that's totally fine. But don't call that drag.
Well, and again, we've talked about this before as well. You can't do cabaret anymore because the main character is asexual.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't do One Enchanted Evening. What's it? South Pacific. You couldn't do South Pacific anymore because that has a bunch of army guys dressing up in coconuts and grass skirts as women.
Which is it? 12th Night, where Rosalind dresses as a man?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's one of the 12 stories. Like how they always say that there's only like 12 main stories that just get retold in different ways again and again and again. I mean, like cross-dressing and pretending that you're. It's I auditioned for that movie. She's the Man. It was Amanda Bynes, and she was a girl who dressed as a boy to play on the soccer team. And that was like a mid-aughts movie. I did not get in the movie, but I auditioned for it.
Hilary Swank did that in a movie.
Well, that was part of the movie, though. That was her being a trans man.
Right.
And that she won the Oscar for that.
She did.
What's the movie? What was the name of that?
Boys Don't Cry.
Boys Don't Cry, yeah. And so that I feel like is like, oh, this is an actual identity versus a funny haha movie where that's not threatening because it's just a comedy. And versus the violence that is being threatened against East High School and all these different places. I mean, I saw a fairly notorious right-wing talk radio guy, because last night was Pride Night at Fiserv. And I don't know if he had reported that there was going to be a drag show at the halftime, which I have not seen any pictures come across to see if there was or there wasn't. But, hard-hitting reporting. But I will say commend in this kind of similar vein, Fiserv has has signed up to be one of the groups that is like a safe house for LGBTQ plus groups. And it's called Safe Space. It's a safe space initiative. And it's basically a place that they put something out that says they are a safe space for people who are LGBTQ and also potential human trafficking victims, that they can help you be able to call the police
if you go there. Yes.
Yeah. And so I will say, like, I appreciate how much I think Fiserv and the Bucks, how it's funny because they're nonpartisan. So as far as their political affiliation to anyone, but like, I feel like you can tell. I mean, granted, Alex Lasry did run as a Democrat, so there's that. But yeah, it's a safe harbor. They're now creating a safe harbor for members of the LGBTQ plus community and victims of human trafficking to call for police for assistance. And Milwaukee as a whole rolled out this program last fall. And since they rolled it out, there's 30 different businesses that have signed up. And it's basically, there's a logo that they put in their window as far as signifying that this is a safe place to go, which is interesting because where my mind just went was, remember when we were talking to Sojourner House, and we're talking to Carmen, the CEO and executive director over there, and kind of the issues that they've had with businesses putting any kind of domestic violence information in the window.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe, 30 businesses in a town of 500,000 plus people is not a ton, but it'd just be interesting to see what some of these businesses say yes to and what they say no to as far as issues.
And I just want to throw one little side note in there. From my own personal experience, I have been to a couple of drag shows, and I went to a strip club once. The strip club was far more traumatizing, at least for me.
Well, I would say the people, on its face, the people who are so mad about drag shows would never publicly admit that strip clubs are fine.
And that they frequent them?
Yes. But I would say that they're not calling threats in against
strip
Silk
clubs
in downtown Milwaukee.
Good point.
And there's one that bothers them a lot more than the other one. But all right. Well, when we come back, do you think you could eat cheese and get paid for it? Does that sound like a good deal to you? Because this might be the job for you. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Life had a remote control. You could pause or rewind. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
I love this song! I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season, to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season, to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
You've got questions about navigating the healthcare system? Kristen Lyerly helps us find answers and discusses other issues at the intersection of healthcare and politics. Hometown Health, Thursday mornings at 7:30 on Up North News Radio.
What grows in the forest? Our imagination and our family bonds. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Cloudy skies expected this afternoon with a chance for scattered snow showers. Highs level off around 31. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows around 15 tonight. Partly cloudy skies. Overcast tomorrow. Snow showers likely. High of 33. 2 to 4 inches of snow today through Saturday night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
WAUK 540 AM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Why you up in the store? What you looking for? Cheese? I'm cheddar. I'm much better than the rest of these.
Don't speak too fast. You need to get a load of this. I'm Swiss.
All right, white boy. They get the gist.
Got more holes in my body than my boy 50 Cent. Curdled on the streets. Geneva represent. Well, Vinny and Louis. Forget about the other cheeses.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. We got Jane McNair picking up fun, cheesy music.
The cheese rap.
The cheese rap.
The cheese rap.
Of course. I bet there's a lot of cheese songs.
You'd be surprised.
I would bet that there is a lot of cheese songs. That's less impressive that you found something there because I think that's some low-hanging fruit. Some of the other ones you find, though, really specific.
Ow.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's a compliment.
All right.
Because there's other topics that I would never think you'd be able to find a song on.
But
and
cheese
yet
is
you
kind
do.
of
Cheese feels like
it's an easier one.
Because people love cheese.
That's true. They do. Just want to back up just for a second. We got a couple texts that we want to share with you, and you can always call and or text, and it's the same number, 844-967-2789. Texter from the 323. We were talking about the difference between drag shows and strip shows that former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker apparently said that called drag shows strip shows, right?
He's like, let's be clear. They're the same thing.
Yeah, okay. Texter from the 323 says the only people taking drag queens' clothes off are Republicans who are doing it in their minds. And another from the 262. I was at the Bucks game last night, and I thoroughly enjoyed the, in quotes, strip show. LOL.
There was a drag show during the half show.
Yeah.
I wonder who performed, because I mean, I've been to some at This Is It in Cathedral Square in Milwaukee, which is always so fun. But it'd be interesting to see, because I think it's Trixie Mattel, who's like the very, very one of the most famous current drag queens, who's from Wisconsin. She's from a small town in Wisconsin. I think she's been on RuPaul, but she is she's a big deal. And so, all right, well, let's talk about cheese then.
Yeah,
we're moving on.
This is great.
So this job will pay you $1,000 to eat cheese every night.
Okay,
not $1,000 per night.
All right,
but it is. It's for a study, because there is some of us. The entire thing of remember how Ebenezer Scrooge, when the first ghost visited him, and he was convinced that it was just a nightmare because he ate cheese before he went to bed.
Oh, wow.
So basically, there's an entire scientific industry dedicated to figuring out what and if cheese affects your sleep. And so this Sleep Junkie is the name of the company, and Sleep Junkie's website is offering sleep product reviews, like mattresses and bedding, as well as information on how to improve your sleep and health. It's currently seeking out dairy dreamers, or a group of people who will receive $1,000 for eating a variety of cheese or hitting the hay every day for 3 months straight.
Is there a certain amount that you have to? I mean, does it have to be the same amount of cheese regardless of variety? I would think.
So there is a variety.
Okay.
So before you get too excited, there are some requirements. So all applicants must be over 21.
Okay.
I don't know why it's 21 and not 18, since it's not alcohol.
Got to be careful with the cheese.
Whatever. You also have to have good writing skills, because you have to be able to write about and reflect on how your sleep was, on the different varieties of cheese.
Keep a diary of sorts.
Yep. And you have to be prepared to be honest about the study and its impact. And of course, you must love sleeping and cheese.
I am so there.
Most of us, right?
Gosh, they just described me with two things.
I was gonna say maybe this is your new side hustle, Jane.
I think I was born for this.
Because they're looking for people who have a consistent sleep schedule. Is that you?
Certainly more so now.
Okay.
Than it used to be.
Do you sleep alone?
Yes.
You do sleep alone. So There you go. So you have to sleep alone for the duration of the study, and probably better, if you are lactose intolerant, you probably should not. I'm not sure they're saying you can't, But
You do
for
that
your reasons, for your own.
Yeah, you're doing that at your own risk.
Yeah, I would maybe. I do love. I have a great story. I have a buddy who lives in Chicago. He and his wife came up. I think it was the first summer I had moved back, and he came to visit Mike and I in Milwaukee. And we're at lunch, and we had just ordered, and he just like popped out his Lactaid or like his like lactose intolerance pills or whatever those were called. And he goes, "There's no way I'm coming here and not having cheese curds." And just like came prepared. And I do appreciate those lactose intolerant people who are willing to just suck it up sometimes because they're like, well, you know what? These are good and I want them.
And I want them. I'm going to eat them.
So if you need an extra $1,000.
Only over 3 months. That's not too
3
bad.
months. And it sounds like there are, it's not the same kind of cheese every night. It's going to be a variety of different kinds of cheeses, from blue cheese to brie to goat cheese and all of this different stuff. And so applications close February 10th. So you better get moving. We will link this to today's show.
I know what I'm doing right after the show.
Would you do this?
No.
You don't like cheese that much?
I love cheese. I would have no problem eating cheese before I went to bed every night for a year.
So why don't you apply?
It's the
having to write about it.
Disciplined enough to write about it.
Yeah.
That's where I would fail.
Because you got like 3 jobs here.
There's a couple things going on.
You're already pretty busy. I think that's probably the same reason I couldn't do it, is because I'm doing a lot already.
Yes.
But if you would like to do this,
I think what a great opportunity.
I also love that it's Sleep Junkies is the name of the company. That is your source for sleep tips and mattress reviews. Like, this is not who I think would be studying the effects of cheese on your sleep, when it's like, it's mostly just because if it's mostly mattress reviews, I don't understand what this has to do with. I guess they just do a bunch. Best research. Here we go. Mattress quiz, technology and sleep, best cities for sleep. So yeah, I guess they do publish a fair amount of their own research on top of their mattress reviews.
And how can we be certain that the all-powerful Kurd lobby is not behind this?
We got invited to go to the National Cheese Championship.
I so want to go.
So we might have to. That's next month.
We got to start working on.
I think we got to figure out
logistics.
Seeing, it's in Madison, so figure out if we can either do the show from Madison or if we just like hop in the car as soon as the show's over.
That would be so great.
I went last year, and it's pretty. If you ever wanted to be surrounded by people who've made their entire life cheese, it's like the opposite of how wine snobs are. I mean, they are cheese snobs, but they're very cool. They're like very, very cool. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this hour. And when we come back, Dr. Mike will be here, because it is that time of the week again for Dr. Mike to fix your life and your lineup. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
You want to put us in your mouth, and don't you? We know you do. I'm stuck in my ways. I'm stuck in your teeth and on your breath for days.
I got more flavor than y'all. I make a wicked cheese ball. My hobbies include doing bird call. Could somebody take over for me?
I'm living large in a condo. If I break a hip, don't put me in a home, bro. But Pops, you don't even have a hip, though. Oh.
This is breaking my heart. Just tell them what they want, yo.
No.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy, and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day, he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
I was just curious as to why you called it the Paul Revere Show.
The Paul Revere Show is named this way because the poem that we all know, the famous ride, the poem was written to rally the troops to fight slavery and fight for democracy. And so I named the show the Paul Revere Show because I thought it was the time to get on the air and talk about democracy.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. always on the Civic Media app.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance.
I'm Steve Kathan. Breaking news from Memphis. Word from CBS TV affiliate WREG that the 5 police officers fired in the Tyree Nichols case were booked at a county jail this morning. The charges to be explained by prosecutors later. Nichols died 3 days after a confrontation with police. His family, after seeing video, says he suffered a savage beating. It was called Hive, a ransomware outfit that was accused of extorting more than $100 million from more than 1,500 companies and institutions around the world. Now, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco says it's out of business.
Using lawful means, we hacked the hackers. We turned the tables on Hive, and we busted their business model, saving potential victims approximately $130 million in ransomware payments.
Well, government health regulators pointing toward what could be an annual COVID-19 vaccine. CBS's Michael George.
The FDA says we're at a point in the pandemic where it's time to reevaluate the nation's approach to COVID-19 vaccines.
We continue to be learning more about SARS coronavirus 2, and especially how rapidly it can evolve.
At a virtual meeting Thursday, the agency's advisory panel discussed whether to adopt a more routine approach, updating the shots every year to combat the latest strain.
Overseas, at least 11 people reported dead after Russian missile strikes and drone attacks in major Ukrainian cities. This man lives in the capital, Kyiv.
I'm staying in my place because it's low. You know, in Kyiv, we're joking. The higher you leave, the higher the chance you have to hit by a rocket.
Well, now to South Carolina and the murder trial of disgraced attorney Alex Murdaugh.
On the right would be Maggie's body, also laying face down on the ground. A large pool of blood around her head.
Yeah. And we see an individual standing. Who is that?
The individual standing in the background would be Mr. Murdaugh.
That's Police Sergeant Daniel Green describing the scene when he found the bodies of Murdaugh's wife and adult son in June of 2021. Some troubling new numbers, skyrocketing auto thefts.
Motor vehicle thefts in 30 major U.S. cities increased nearly 60% during the pandemic from 2019 to 2022, according to the Council on Criminal Justice. Car
Can you hear me
thefts
okay?
are record highs in New Orleans.
How does it sound? Okay.
What? You sound good,
I I'm using Scott's fancy mic, so hopefully it sounds even better.
Carjackings are
fancy
also
mic.
up significantly.
I've got the little
Priscilla
thing.
CBS.
I listened to the recording last
Economy
week
grew at a 2.9%
online, and I felt like it
pace
sounded like I
last
had
3 months of last year,
a pretty
but now in Wall
bad
Street, now
list.
higher.
And
Really?
I was like, okay, fancy mic it is.
Nobody should have to pay for one size
Not that
fits
there's anything
all
wrong with
insurance
having a
coverage.
list. I
Liberty
just want to
Mutual
sound like
customizes your
myself.
car and home
you know?
insurance.
You're like, I
So
just
you
don't have a
only pay
list.
for what
So,
you need. Liberty
all
Mutual
right, cool.
Insurance.
So we'll come back and
WAUK 540
we'll start with
AM,
5 of
Brookfield's
the
choice for News Talk Radio.
things and see how far that gets us, and then we'll
24/7
ask the
at
question that you put in there, and then we'll see if we get any questions, and that'll be it. All right, I'm gonna eat some more chips before we come
For
back.
Civic Media, I'm Jane Metnair. Here's what you need to know. Wisconsin residents are concerned about the safety of their drinking water. Governor Evers is calling for $100 million from the state budget surplus to fight PFAS pollution. Efforts to tackle PFAS contamination have been obstructed, delayed, or outright rejected by the Republican-controlled legislature since 2019. Top GOP lawmakers say they're worried about the amount of spending the governor proposed in his State of the State address. Wisconsinites say the state should be spending their tax dollars on safe drinking water. Some Republicans agree. The newly appointed Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources Board made his first public speech Wednesday. Adam Payne says safe drinking water is one of his top priorities. Payne says clean water is a public health matter and not a partisan issue, and if we want people to move to Wisconsin, safe water is necessary. I'm Jane Metnair for Civic Media News.
It's a new year, and because we're excited about our new and still growing Civic Media network of radio stations, it's time to do something really big. How does a $1 million advertising giveaway sound to you? Our celebration is your chance to work alongside Civic Media's amazing sales team to create a custom radio advertising campaign promoting your business for free. The $1 million advertising giveaway today only. There are some rules. Go to civicmedia.us/million.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
You recall the Capitol insurrection? A post-ABC News poll showed 54% said Trump should be criminally charged for inciting the riot. That's like a litany of criminal allegations against the former president. You can say it's all partisanship and a witch hunt, but there wasn't one credible accusation against Obama during his entire 8-year term. So how Republicans just ignore all the evidence? I mean, he was perpetrating a coup on multiple levels.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm looking at the phone lines. I'm seeing some familiar faces. What's in mind, Jean of Eau Claire?
Well, welcome back, Matt. I really miss you. We've been missing getting woke every morning, but now we'll get woke in the afternoon.
What's in mind, Andrew of Detroit?
Professor, it's so nice you're back. We missed you during your vacation, and I'm very happy to be in your class for the semester.
Thanks a lot for calling in. I appreciate all my callers.
Tune in to Matt Flynn Direct, Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 p.m.
A progressive voice from Manitowoc to Janesville. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUK Radio.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
It's Thursday, so that means Dr. Mike is here to fix your life and your lineup.
Prey on their desperation. That's my advice as a psychologist. Prey on the desperation of others.
You totally need that plaque in your office, Dr. Mike.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin. We are in our third hour of today's Thursday show, which can only mean one thing. Dr. Michael McCutcheon is back to fix your life and your lineup. He is an executive coach and specializes in career achievement and life satisfaction. He's here to help us tackle topics like career, love, fitness, family, and he also loves to help people make easy money on things like DraftKings. So he also happens to be my best friend of the last 15 years. So we always have fun with him for a half hour every Thursday. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How are you all doing?
We're good, but one big thing, Jane, I think this is a surprise for you. Some big news from Mr. McCutcheon, Dr. McCutcheon, this last week. He was in the New York Times.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
So it's calling it quits. In the New York Times, it's called, the headline is, "You quit your job, but you're still miserable. Now what?" So how did this come about?
Yeah, they were looking for career experts, which, allegedly I am one. And so they interviewed me a long time ago, like around Thanksgiving. And it was great. We had a really great talk. And sometimes you talk with people. I talked with a couple other places like Oprah.com, like BuzzFeed, these big places. They're like, "We love you. We're going to post it," and nothing happens. And this time, I slightly forgot about it. And they reached out a couple of weeks ago to say, "Hey, we're gonna use your stuff. We need some more." And it went up on Monday. It was great. And it was pretty cool. I went to graduate school in New York, so it was kind of cool because it was like your local paper in a way. It's just kind of like just knowing that people from when I was young are going to read that. So it's kind of fun. It was kind of a cool life milestone, and it was great to see it up there.
What was your advice?
It was actually, which I know that you will not be surprised at all about, Kristen. It was a little bit of tough love, sort of saying, yes, you left your job. The boss may have been tough, may have been micromanaging, may have been a bad culture. Absolutely leave. But also take this as an opportunity to look at your side of the street too. Okay, if you're going to go someplace new, are there things that I want to do differently at my next place? Can I set up better boundaries, right? Can I actually get better sleep and show up at meetings a little bit better, right? This is a clean slate, not just for you to get new things at a new place, but for you to be better at your new place. So, yeah.
Dr. Mike, were you at all tempted to buy like 50 hard copies of the New York Times just to leave them in your car, and then you could pass them out to random strangers and circle your name and I'm in here?
Whatever do you mean, Jane? No, that never crossed my mind whatsoever. Did I text anybody in New York and ask them to go fund? No. That would have never crossed my mind, Jane. Absolutely. for sure.
Here's a
Yeah.
question that I've never asked you as your best friend. Do you have a Google alert set up for your own name?
Oh, no, I don't. But as my best friend, I'm sure you have a Google alert
I
set
do.
for my name, don't you? For my name?
Oh, for your name or for my name?
No, I'm too nervous for that. I'd be so nervous that because I teach, I'd be so nervous that some student would say, this bastard gave me a B and I'll never take his class again.
Are you on ratemyprofessor.com? Do you have a page?
I'm sure I do. I haven't looked at it. Brene Brown gave that really famous TED talk, and then I saw her give a talk after that, and she said the worst thing she ever did was read the comment section of her TED talk. And so she's like, she said she read the comment section and she didn't leave her house for 3 days because she just couldn't stop feeling bad about herself. So if Brene Brown doesn't like the comments, then I'm not going to like my comments, right? So yeah, I'm not messing with that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to continue. We only have a couple more days of this, but continue through 5 more ways to slightly improve your life without really trying. And we are on 76. Yes. All right. So this is where, this is from The Guardian. They published an article called The 100 Ways to Slightly Improve Your Life Without a lot of effort. And we've been going through 5 or 10 a day throughout this month, adopting the things that we think are useful.
There are some things that are reasonable.
Yeah. And then the ones that seem like too much effort, moving on from. All right. Number 76, ditch the plastic cartons and find a milkman. The modern milkman has a comprehensive list. I did not know there were milkmen anymore. Is this a British thing? Or do you think it works in the States?
I looked this up earlier because I like to do my homework before the show. And the one thing by the way, I also listened to your segment earlier right before this too. So this is a very lactose heavy hour we're having on the show.
I mean, it is. It's a show with the name Wisconsin in it. So
That's right. But one thing I like almond milk. I find because I don't really like to just have a heavy glass of milk. It upsets my stomach. And if the milkman doesn't have almond milk, so I can't take their advice here. If the milkman would bring me almond milk with low sugar to my doorstep, I would do it. But since it doesn't, I'm sorry. I can't do it.
But Dr. Mike, then you need a juice man because it's almond juice. It's
right.
not technically milk.
It's not milk.
You're totally right.
Oat milk,
Yeah.
it's oat juice. Let's just agree.
And
go ahead.
You're so right, Jane. On this website, they actually call it worse. They call it drink. It's oat drink, which I feel like is like, yeah.
Like grape drink.
You're right. No, yeah.
All right. 77. Rent rather than buy a suit or a dress for that forthcoming wedding, even if it's your own. I do this. I do Rent the Runway.
Yeah.
And because I have never been someone who's like, I just, especially it was such a genius idea when they came up with it like over 10 years ago, which was the concept of, women don't necessarily want to wear the same dress to different events and weddings and stuff, but buying $400 dress, like a $400 dress you're only going to wear once isn't really reasonable either. So I've been renting stuff for years, and it's fun because it's stuff that I would never buy.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Have you ever rented a suit?
Is there a rental option for guys?
There are for tuxes for sure. But Kristen, I was going to say, as an alternative, I kind of feel like if you want to rent a dress, that's great. Rent the Runway exists. But I feel like if you want to have a suit, you and I both love Suit Shop, owned by our friend Diana. And Suit Shop, you have a jacket from Suit Shop, don't you? And so they have stuff for people of all genders there. And your husband has a couple from Suit Shop as well.
He wore it to your wedding.
Exactly. And they have a place in Chicago. So I just kind of feel
that's not renting, that's buying, but it's a very affordable price for a very good quality.
Yeah. If there was Rent the Runway for suits where it was like really like high, if I could rent a Tom Ford suit or tux or whatever, then I would. But there's no Rent the Runway for men. So I feel like The Guardian is not talking to me with this particular point. Yeah.
Fair. They're also not talking to you about milk, apparently. So, all right. 78, always book an extra day off after a holiday. I totally agree with this. The reset button of before I have to actually go to work, be able to read my emails, get acclimated, clean my house, unpack, and not just have to roll into work like the day after you get home is very nice.
You got to have a bump day. I always called it a bump day.
Yeah.
You know, when I was much younger, it was like, sure, my flight will get in at 10 and I got to get up at 3. No problem. And you do that once or twice, and that was the last time you do that.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we all saw this past year with all the holidays that none of the flights actually got in when they were supposed to either, right? So you're really in trouble then, right? Because like you're not going to actually get to where you need to be.
No. And then you'll really need an extra day off.
Right.
All right. Number 79, ignore the algorithm. Listen to music outside your usual taste.
Ooh. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
do you?
I like that.
What would be outside of your usual taste?
I kind of feel like there are some jazz artists that I know just because I've just let the discover, option on Spotify do its thing. And so now I've got a couple of, jazz songs that are saved in my things that I'm like, when was I ever just going to happen on a jazz station? But now I have, and I like a couple things. That's kind of fun. And I don't know. Do you listen to jazz? I don't. On my own.
I appreciate jazz, but that's probably a good example of something that was like, I like that, but it's not my go-to. I mean, let's be honest. When I'm just in the house by myself, I definitely go, Alexa, play show tunes.
Yeah.
And then Mike comes home and goes, what are you listening to? Gosh, and I'm lip syncing in the kitchen.
Yeah. That's good.
All right. And then number 80, mute or leave a WhatsApp group.
Oh. That's great.
I have a couple of WhatsApp groups muted because that's the benefit of a WhatsApp group. For anyone who's not familiar, WhatsApp is a company that's owned by Facebook. It is a group chat messaging system that is outside of like SMS texting on your phone. And the beauty of WhatsApp, which I guess I think Apple maybe now you can you unsend a text now on Apple in the iMessage?
You can edit it.
Okay, so because there's in texting, this is where our family thread is that Mike and his partner are on. They get to. I'm sure we're muted for you guys.
No, definitely not. But no. I like all the sometimes drama. I love when you guys are on vacation and Ben can't find the car. I love those 15 texts. That's a lot of fun. That's great. That's my favorite.
Yeah. I always wonder. I was like, I wonder what these guys are thinking as they read our random pointed comments to each other that we're just deciding to do in the open air.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think the things that need to be muted are ones where you're just like, I don't know how I got this in the first place. If somebody's like, oh, we're all going to go for somebody's birthday and we're all going to plan this thing, but then the WhatsApp group stays forever. Why are people still chiming in on this thing 2 years later?
Yeah.
I don't know why this exists, but I think the thing that makes it hard for people is I'm not on Facebook really anymore, but if you leave a messenger group, it announces it. I think it does that on WhatsApp too. And people feel so bad for announcing their departure. I think people take that as kind of a middle finger to the rest of the group.
I agree. I think that they should, in the same way that WhatsApp has been the really the pioneer of better texting etiquette, and that the fact that you can send something and immediately delete it. I feel like the next thing is take away the announcement. Just let us leave and not make a fuss about it. All right. When we come back, we'll take your questions for the doctor and a couple advice and bets for this weekend for football. Stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Many more. Hey.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
the devil's advocates.
Now, we've met Ted Cruz more than once. Once in
he has
Dayton,
very
Wisconsin,
slippery hands.
and once in Ishawaka, Indiana.
He was so desperate. He literally walked into this diner with families eating and shook every single person's hand, whether they wanted him to or not. And some of the kids were like, "What, Bobby?"
He was invading lots of bubbles. Mommy, make the greasy man go away. I can smell the desperation, Mommy.
Finish your high school diploma for you and your family. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Cloudy skies expected this afternoon with a chance for scattered snow showers. Highs level off around 31. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows around 15 tonight, partly cloudy skies. Overcast tomorrow, snow showers likely, high of 33. 2 to 4 inches of snow today through Saturday night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Butler to Wind Lake. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Is your love life a fantasy? Having issues with your fantasy football roster? Helping with football and your love life? Here's your new best friend, Dr. Mike.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
So live your life. You steady dressing up
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. We are here because it's Thursday and we have Dr. Mike with us, and he is helping us fix our life and our lineup. He is an executive coach and specializes in career achievement and life satisfaction. So he helps us answer questions from listeners and the audience who submit them as far as things that they need some help on. And then he also, we always finish up with some advice on bets that Jane definitely then goes to Potawatomi with the new sport book.
Oh,
and
I'll be first in line.
All right. So if you have a question that you want to ask the doctor this week or even next week, because he will be back, 844-967-2789. But right now we have one about love and sex life. Hey, Dr. Mike, I'm a 40-year-old married guy, and I've noticed my sex drive going down the last several years. Additionally, my partner wants sex more than me, and I've felt like I'm a disappointment in bed. So I'm thinking of getting a prescription of Viagra, which we were talking about earlier today, but I'm on the fence. Should I feel embarrassed to need this medical assistance at my young age? Because I kind of do feel embarrassed. And I should tell my partner that I'm using, and should I tell my partner that I'm using these pills? Because I really don't want to share this information with my partner, both out of embarrassment and also because I don't want them to feel like they are at any way at fault. And so what should I do?
Yeah, it's tough. Thanks for sharing this question. It's a vulnerable question to ask. And I think a lot of people take this stuff personally, but really, it's, we can't help our biology. Things change within us, right? Our hair goes gray at 22, our hair goes gray at 62. We don't have a whole lot of control over that. Sometimes things just happen to our bodies, and we can do what we can do. So I think as far as the embarrassment thing is concerned, far be it for me to tell you how to feel, but there's really no need to feel embarrassed. You've done nothing wrong. So I guess what I would say is this does happen to people at ages far younger than you. I've talked to people who it's happened to people who are in college or in their mid 20s, where they're just having a hard time maintaining arousal or getting aroused, and it's not about the particular partner. It's just about biology, and so this is kind of a normal thing for a lot of guys. But to the other part, I think the important thing here has to do with the relationship. The thing I would really be firm about here is definitely don't keep this from your partner. This is definitely a conversation to have. Your partner probably already feels like something's going on there. They want to have sex and you don't want to have sex. That they probably already kind of are feeling some kind of way. So if it doesn't have anything to do with them, I'd start there and let them know what's going on with you. And if you do want to have this prescription to enhance your sex life, and in doing so, enhance your relationship, that's a great talk to have, actually. You're actually saying, I want to improve our life, not do this thing because we have a problem. You're kind of forward thinking here. So I wouldn't hide it. In fact, it could actually kind of blow up in your face if you do hide it. And you can, months or years down the line, if they find this, this bottle or this pill or something like that, that could then look like deceit, and they could think, what else are you hiding and whatnot? And that's probably not a conversation that you want to get into by accident. So I'd have a conversation and go to your doctor and try it out.
And you may or may not be able to answer this because you are a doctor of the mind, not how the physical manifestations of aging and stuff. But is there natural ways to increase your sex drive as you get older?
Sure. I also, this person, I don't know if there's too much alcohol going on, that can do it. A lot of times people, one thing that hasn't really been wildly regulated, but people have been doing more recreationally is marijuana. I think a lot of people have sort of noticed that the more you smoke, that people's libido goes down a little bit. Obviously work and stress. Some people react to things in different ways. Sometimes people say they want to blow off steam by having sex. Some people say they're so worn down that they don't want to have sex, right? So those things can go in different ways. So there have been some also working out. Obviously people go to the gym and they feel revved up afterwards and they want to go have sex afterwards. So if you haven't been going to the gym as much, so certainly there are some things you can tweak there as well. So I would definitely talk with your primary care physician about those life changes as well.
All right. Well, in the couple minutes we have left, let's talk football. So it is the NFL Conference Championship weekend. What is the safest bet this weekend, Dr. McCutcheon?
Okay. The Jane special, we like to call it. This is the bet that Jane's going to run to the sports book with. Yes. I like this bet a lot. Brock Purdy is a rookie quarterback. He's Mr. Irrelevant, which means he was the very last pick in the draft, but he's somehow 7-0. And the reason he is 7-0 is because he is very, very safe. He makes all.
This is 49ers.
49ers quarterback. Thank you for that. Yes.
Because Jimmy Garoppolo, the prettiest man alive, is injured.
He's injured. Yes. And so Brock Purdy, he's been great. He's been great, Brock Purdy. So he's going to throw the ball to his tight end a lot. His security blanket, George Kittle. For whatever reason, George Kittle's receptions are under 3.5, which means he needs to get what for over, Kristen? What number?
2. Well, you said 1.5?
3.5.
Oh, 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So if he gets 4
Don't
or
quiz
more,
me on my own show.
Have I said how beautiful and smart you are today?
Thank you.
Okay, good. Yes. Okay. Yes. So if he gets 4 or more, he hits. So that's the bet we're going to take. George Kittle over 3.5.
All right. You don't have a lot of time to explain this one, but what's the most fun bet?
I have it right here for you on DraftKings. If Christian McCaffrey scores a touchdown, Travis Kelce scores a touchdown, and Jalen Hurts scores a touchdown, all 3 of them score a touchdown this weekend, you get plus 654, meaning if you spend $10, you'll win $65. Or you spend $100, you win $654. They're all going to score a touchdown. Do it. It'll be fun. You'll get rich overnight.
All right. There it is. Money, money, money. All right. Dr. Michael McCutcheon, as always, thank you for spending time with us on your busy schedule. We will see you again next Thursday.
See you next week. Bye.
All right. Coming up, a doomsday cock. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Feel connected to the feet of your self-appointed constituents. Maybe hours you spend watching post-match pontificators amplify the thrill of being a witness and better your predictive aptitude for your squad. Future physical fitness, sports, go sports. Athletics are number 1. Participants.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
CBS News Brief. 5 police officers have now been booked at the Shelby County Jail in Memphis on a number of charges, including murder and assault in the death of Tyree Nichols. The 29-year-old died after a violent traffic stop earlier this month. CBS's Lana Zach.
All 5 officers have been fired for their involvement in the arrest of Tyree Nichols, have now turned themselves in.
The FBI has helped dismantle an international ransomware gang. Attorney General Merrick Garland.
Known as the Hive ransomware group, this network targeted more than 1,500 victims around the world since June of 2021.
The double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh is underway now in South Carolina. The former lawyer is accused of killing his wife and adult son to distract from financial crimes. Sergeant Daniel Green testified about arriving on the murder scene.
Did you ever see any tears in your interactions with Mr. Murdaugh?
He did not appear to be crying. He was upset, but I did not see any visible tears.
CBS News Brief. I'm Monica Ricks.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. Wisconsin's record budget surplus keeps growing. The Legislative Fiscal Bureau now says state government could be $7.1 billion in the black in July. That's $500 million more than expected. Almost 90% of that increase comes from money that was set aside during the past 2 years but not spent. Lawmakers and the governor are talking about what to do with the money. If you don't have high-speed internet where you live, now is the time to fix that. Anyone can challenge the Federal Communications Commission's draft of the National Broadband Map. You can check your address to see if you should be getting it. Washington is trying to get high-speed internet access to as many people as possible. In sports, the Bucks beat Denver last night 107-99. Maryland shelled the Badgers 73-55. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam! Ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Remember the last time your family visited the forest? It's a place of wonder and imagination for the whole family, where stories come to life, and it's closer than you think. Ready to plan your next visit? Make the forest part of your story today at a local park near you, or find one at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike and you didn't? I just created an environment where they taught themselves and all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on the Civic Media Network. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. We are rounding out the last half hour of today's Thursday show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your texts so far. You can always call and join the conversation or text and join the conversation. It is the same number, 844-967-2789. And I'm just eagerly waiting to hear some updates on how our $1 million ad giveaway is going.
It's underway.
It's underway. It is live. If you are a business owner or you have a loved one who owns a business and their clientele and potential customers live in Wisconsin and you think some free advertising would help your product or service, you should visit civicmedia.us/million right now. We are, go ahead.
And it's not for companies like Kohler. I mean, nothing against Kohler, but I don't know that companies that like Kohler need.
No.
We're looking for small businesses.
I feel like, does Kohler do, I don't know if I've ever seen a Kohler like
Radio ad?
Well, that would be hearing the ad, but I don't even know if I've seen a Kohler commercial, like a TV commercial. Sure, they existed at some point. That's a company that's been around for a long time, but I was thinking about that. I was like, what? So one of my favorite jokes from when I did the Milwaukee roast back in October, I had a couple good ones in that, but one of them was, the whole premise was things I've learned about Milwaukee since moving here. And one was, I've learned that the entire city is brought to you by Gruber Law Offices. And I asked, I forgot who I was talking to. I was like, how much do you think he spends, he being the law firm, on advertising? I mean, it has to be
big budget.
Big budget.
Big
because
budget.
Truly, commercial, airwaves, Bucks sponsorships, the name is on everything, TV ads. Gruber is everywhere with that toothy grin. And I mean, then it got me thinking about some of the companies that you never see advertising for, and like what the difference in industry or product or service, and like what makes sense of like where your ad buys go, and what are the things that translate the best to radio. What have you found to be the companies that obviously, I mean, you've never been a salesperson, you haven't seen the numbers as far as, how this translates, but it's like in your years of listening to radio ads, what have been the dominant industries?
Dominant are usually car dealers.
Okay.
Retailers like American TV, which probably was gone before you got back.
I remember, before I got back. I remember it growing up.
And Kohler's furniture and appliance places.
Okay.
And now I think
Steinhoffels.
And Penny Mustard and those places.
Penny Mustard is still around.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I've heard those commercials.
Oh, definitely. But I guess those are the ones.
Yeah.
That seem to be pretty constant.
Do you have a favorite that stood out to you over the years?
Commercial?
Yeah. One that you're like, oh, that was clever. Because I feel like sometimes radio jingles, you're like, okay. And this one again, then you know them by heart. But was there one that ever caught you off guard that you're like, well, that was clever?
Only ones that I've done, which is completely self-serving. But one of my first partners, literally in 1985 and 86, we did a series of commercials for our radio show at that time. And we ad-libbed for like 7.5 hours.
And you just took what worked?
And they took the best stuff that worked. And some of it's still hilarious.
Were you sober when you did this?
Yes, tragically. It could have been really good if we had been drinking.
Truly. What did you ad-lib about? Like, what was the prompt?
Who's the audience? Who are you talking to? Who you're trying to address? What does your show cover? And it's just like, so here's the thing. Now go.
Huh.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then I was opening in a play that night.
Not the Vagina Monologues.
No. Moon for the Misbegotten here in Waukesha.
How many plays have you done over the years?
Oh, many. Many, many, many.
Would you do another one? Should we do a play? Should we find a 2-woman play and put it up somewhere and do it as like a fundraiser someday?
That'd be great.
To get our theater friends to start thinking of scripts that have
what would be a good show?
2 characters that are around our ages. That would be super fun.
It would be super fun.
Maybe when this is all a little more
established,
and there's we have more free time. But we'll put that on our bucket list as far as Jade and Kristen on the marquee. Come see us.
Just imagine.
All right. So this was kind of news that it's like, did we really need this right now, you scientists? Really? Really? So the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist this week set the doomsday clock to 90 seconds to midnight.
That's closer.
So it's like, why? First of all, do we really need this? And do we really need the reminder that things kind of, if you're paying attention, feel not great? Because I don't need that.
But there are many folks who should be made aware of this.
I guess that's true. But
who I think have their head in the sands about climate and
wars
and starvation. And yeah, so unfortunately for people who are kind of in the loop, and you and I, we've talked about this before, we swim in a very different pool. We're very news oriented. We keep up on a lot of different stuff, but the vast majority of people don't swim where we swim.
That is true. I guess that's true. But if you missed it, this is what happened. So apparently the world is closer to catastrophe than ever. The Doomsday Clock, yes, that is its official title, and it is a metaphorical measure of challenges to humanity, was reset to 90 seconds before midnight this past Tuesday. And so it's the Science and Security Board of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. I don't even know what that is.
Oh, they're so much fun. I love those guys.
I know. It's funny because in the article this is an NPR article, and they have the 2023 Doomsday Clock announcement, like YouTube link. And you know how the thumbnail is there? I mean, I guess I wouldn't expect any of the scientists in this picture to be smiling, because that would be a little weird too.
That's a little incongruous.
But it's a very somber picture.
But they're lots of fun when they're off the clock.
I'm sure their conferences are a wild time.
Crazy.
So they said the move, the closest to widespread calamity humanity has ever been judged to be, was largely, though not exclusively, due to the war in Ukraine.
Yeah. Global implications.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that, I think, sometimes when I prep for the day of what we're going to talk about, in the national news outlets and the newsletters and stuff that I get, that I skim through, Ukraine stuff's in there a lot. But it's kind of like, is this a good radio topic? Is this a good radio topic for us? I'm trying to put it into context, or, because I think the announcement today is that US and Germany are sending tanks finally. And
well, it's almost a year. This war has been going on for almost a year already.
I know. And, just the implications that, like, this very well could escalate to World War III. And it's been a year of these news updates. And, when it first broke out, everything I listened to, every podcast, whether it was the Ezra Klein show or the Bulwark or radio shows, and like all the things that I listened to, every day there was an update on Ukraine and what was happening in Russia, and how, like, the misinformation in Russia, and who was leaving, and the sanctions and the oligarchs and all this stuff. And, like, everywhere you couldn't escape. And it seemed fascinating. And then because of our fish brains, as far as our attention spans, we're still getting updates, and it's still important, but it's like that, I don't know if it's numbness, but that, like, needing to place it somewhere, because you can't just live your life on thinking about a war that's not on our doorstep.
Right.
It matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be supporting them, but it's just like, to read about it every day, or to talk about it on this show every day, is like, where do you place that in the priority of information?
Right.
But certainly, like, it's a razor's edge, I imagine, as far as what the people who are the NATO folks, and, like, what the line is. And apparently they made the decision that these tanks are not over the line as far as how they think Putin will see it.
But again, as we've talked about, and it's not just oil, and it's not just the flow of oil that is being disrupted by Russia's act of aggression against Ukraine, because that's what it is. Ukraine's it was always called the breadbasket of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Big wheat producers, just big, very agriculture heavy, that helps feed the world. Somalia, Haiti, lots of countries that have problems with poverty and malnourishment, and that all has a ripple effect for all of us. It's one pebble in a body of water goes further than you think.
Yeah, like a javelin across ice.
Yes, that we learned about earlier.
It can go a mile.
Nice comeback.
So I guess I don't know what the like, I would interested to see what the science and, like, the inputs need to be of, like, how many seconds they decide that it needs to be updated to.
I can reach out to them. We'll see if we can get one of them
oh,
on.
Man, do you think that? Try to find one of the more playful ones.
Oh,
try to imagine how this interview would go.
That'll be so super easy, I'm sure.
But I guess in 2020, the clock was set to 100 seconds to midnight. And it was the first time. I didn't know this was a famous clock, but apparently this is a famous clock.
It's been around for a long time.
It's been around since 1947.
Yeah.
So basically since like the nuclear bomb. And we were like, oh, we just keep creating ways to ruin the world if anyone wanted to. So let's make a clock to remind people of how close we are to ever doing that. But it remained at 100 seconds to midnight for the last 2 years. But I guess at the time in 2020, the Bulletin scientists said we are at doom's doorstep. But I just feel like I just go back to, I don't need this reminder. Maybe other people need this reminder, but I strongly am like, if you're paying attention, everything feels broken. And I need more things to cheer me up than bring me down. And so how do you cheer yourself up in the sea of news that we swim in?
I look for silly songs.
Yeah.
And I mean this most sincerely because I missed a lot of that stuff when I was in my 20s and 30s. I didn't watch videos. That just wasn't my scene. And now being able to see some of these videos from the 80s and 90s.
Oh, you mean like music videos?
Music
like the
videos.
original mini, yeah.
It's hilarious. It's just the fashions, the hair, the attitudes,
the performances.
It's like camp.
That's so funny.
And so I really find a lot of escape when I look for unique songs.
All right. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what I do.
Watch Pixar movies.
Pixar movies are good. If you let me know, 844-967-2789. If you have a go-to as far as how you keep positive.
You want to feel better.
And how you feel better as far as, and not feel better because like obviously there is things in your immediate life. Like I think there's like in my immediate life right now, things are good, right? And then it's just the being very aware of what's going on in the world for me right now. Granted, things change. For me right now, trying to balance those two things of being a responsible citizen and also having this show of wanting to talk about what's happening and wanting to be aware of what's happening and being able to explain it. And so that is part of my job. It's also what I'm interested in, but like being able to hold that and also being able to hold my life is pretty good. And so it's like, what is the right level of concern and sadness and anger when your personal life is good, but the world feels bleak
and heavy.
So, well, we got one more segment left. We'll probably keep talking about this. Again, if you have suggestions on things that keep you positive or cheer you up.
Yeah, where do you escape?
844-967-2789. Stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
Yes!
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by USDA Forest Service and the Ad Council.
I'm 54, so it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save even in your 50s can really make a difference. At aceyourretirement.org, in just 3 minutes, you'll get a free personalized retirement plan. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Jim Santel. I am the host of Morning Cannolis. Every single Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., we talk about the major stories in law, in government, and the aspiration for justice in America. Delighted to have you join, call in, and be a part of our discussion right here on the networks of Civic Media.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it.
When your kid can't find the language, find the lyrics. Start a conversation at soundedouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Snow showers likely at times this afternoon, otherwise cloudy skies. Highs around 31, winds out of the northwest, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 15 tonight, partly cloudy skies. Snow showers likely tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 33, overcast skies. 2 to 4 inches of snow today through Saturday night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 28 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for News Talk Radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry. Jay Madnair and I are dancing. We got one segment left. Talk about drag.
The ultimate Rocky Horror Picture Show, yes.
How old were you when that came out?
Well, I saw it for the first time when I was in college.
Okay.
But didn't it come out in the 70s? Like
I actually don't know when it came out.
74? I will have to look it up.
But I'm trying to imagine what it was like to think about what the rhetoric is now around drag and everything like that. Like in the 70s when that came out, how many people and which people were appalled by chance as far as what they thought of that movie, which is now a classic. But we
75.
75?
1975.
So do you remember if there was any kind of like outrage over that movie?
I was 15.
So 15 in Hartford.
15. That
working
wasn't
for
even
your
a
dad
blip.
as a mortician.
I didn't even know that it existed.
Did you like it the first time you saw it?
I did.
Yeah. It's such a fun show.
Yeah.
Is that one of your ways to uplift yourself?
Musicals.
Yeah.
I would consider this a musical.
It's definitely a musical.
And animated movies. I love good animated movies.
Trying to think of what my go-to thing is. So we were talking previously, we were talking about the doomsday clock and how on Tuesday it was moved a little bit closer to midnight because we are on doomsday's doorstep.
On the precipice.
And my opinion is that I don't need the reminder. And so I thought that was funny. See if you can guess who said this. This is a quote. "It's tough to be alive right now. I think societal collapse is in the air."
Is that a relative of mine? No. Can you give me a hint?
He is a very popular young actor.
Timothy Chalamet.
Good guess. Holy, you really
seriously? Wow.
Wow, I was not. Good guess.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where he wrote that, but talk about charm life of just, but it is. I think that's very true. I think that there is a lot of us who are concerned citizens who we worry on behalf of these stories and how they affect others, even if we could be ignorant and just keep our head in the sand because our lives are fine. And so trying to find that balance of caring, but not
drowning.
Yeah. In stuff and being able to recognize. I think that's like meditate, like I don't meditate. I should, that's on my should list. I'm shooting myself. But like ultimately, if you didn't have news, if you didn't have social media and you didn't have all these other things, like, not that you shouldn't pay attention, but at least trying to remember the things that you're actually surrounded by are good. And I sometimes think about that as far as getting, stressed out with balancing all the things. And that's the reminder of like, you asked for this. You know what I mean? It's like you wanted to do content and be in this space of entertainment and news.
And make TikToks.
And to do that was never going to be like, once someone lets you do it, it wasn't going to be easy. it's not a cakewalk. And so like that's like the constant reminder to myself of whenever I do feel stressed out in the immediate moment of like, well, what else did you think it was going to be?
It's always better when it's still just a concept.
It's just the dream.
It's just the dream.
Of things will be easier when.
Exactly.
Things will be better when.
Exactly. And we all do that.
And the truth is, I mean, I think about this too. It's like, and it only becomes in something, especially something like this, but even big companies, like the goal is also sometimes inviting more stress because the pressure becomes higher and there's more to lose. And, you know, if as this show grows and there's more people listening every day and that opens the invitation for more people who don't like us and who have a lot of, every time we make a screw up, are there to point it out to us. And the things that happen where you can't get anything right, like when we were talking about to Frank earlier in the show, of you just kind of have to keep your compass straight of what we're doing in our show, because as it grows, there's more people listening, there's more people invested, and there's potentially more people that you're letting down when there's dead air or you get a fact wrong or something
disagree.
like that. And so again, try and be present in what we're doing right now. So presently right now, final reminder, this is the last time I'll get to talk about it. So I guess it's a good way to close the show.
Definitely.
With right now, the $1 Million ad giveaway is live. It's been live since 9 a.m. this morning. This is the only day. So we will be back tomorrow. I will not be mentioning this anymore. Maybe we'll mention the results if we find out what the results are.
We'll see what happens.
How many referrals said As Goes Wisconsin? Maybe we'll talk about that. But tomorrow will be too late to sign up. So if you are listening to this right now and you are a business owner, or you have a friend or a family member who is a business owner, who it would behoove them to have some more advertising that they don't have to pay for on the radio, go to civicmedia.us/million. Really simple application. Just details about your company, where you're located, what your advertising goals are. But then at the bottom, it's going to say, it's required. So you have to put something.
Oh, cool.
You do have to put something. So why not put As Goes Wisconsin?
Even though Brian Kelly, who's coming up next on Dueling Tangents with Luke Mathers, did mention yesterday that his life was potentially in harm's way.
I know. And I love Brian and I'll miss Brian, but
we will miss Brian.
We'll miss Brian. We'll miss our Russian mafia mobster.
He's the best.
Utility knife, but we're going to win this thing.
Otherwise, God forbid, something should happen to Cliff the dog.
That's true. That's true. But yes, in all seriousness, please take advantage of this. Let us help you promote your business, partner with you, because all boats rise with rising tides, or whatever that feel good sentiment is.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Civicmedia.us/million. It's going to be live all today, and you should definitely check it out. And then while you're there, subscribe to the social media channels and check out the other shows and all the different stations. We have a really cool coverage map on the website that shows
great shows.
And the coverage map is really cool though, because you can see with all of the stations under the Civic Media umbrella where the coverage is. And obviously you can also always stream any of our shows on civicmedia.us or any of the different station websites or on the Civic Media app. But the coverage map shows the actual air coverage of that radio signal that we don't really know how it works, but it works, and see that it's like really is most of the state right now, which is pretty cool. So with that, stick around for Dueling Tangents with Luke and Brian. We will be back at 11 a.m. tomorrow to do it all again. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.